Chapter 1824. Phew. Thank you, Mr. Zhongliang. We will definitely repay the kindness of the Confucian school in the future. Seeing this, Old Man Ban and the others were overjoyed and bowed to Zhongliang to express their gratitude. If the Confucians were willing to let Tianming enter the Sage Manor, they would definitely be able to get closer to each other, and their alliance would become even stronger. The Great Qin Empire is our enemy, so there's no need to thank me, Zhongliang said with a fake smile. However, Zhongliang wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He wanted to say that he had been forced to agree to Dustless's conditions. If he refused Dustless's conditions, it would cause unnecessary trouble. If he couldn't even meet this basic condition, how could they still be considered allies? If this kind of small matter was not handled properly, the relationship between the allies could be broken. It was even possible for them to part ways and become strangers in the future. Thank you, Mr. Zhongliang. Seeing Zhongliang's hidden bitter-gourd face, Dustless felt great in his heart. Mr. Dustless must be joking. If anything bad happens to the Confucian school, we will need your help. Zhongliang's expression was well hidden, and it was impossible to see any emotional fluctuations. Of course. Don't worry, Mr. Zhongliang. If it is within my power, I will not refuse, Dustless said with a perfunctory smile. In truth, there was only one reason why he had gone through so much trouble to sneak into the Confucian school. Chu Nangong. In his mind, he would suddenly think of an old man who was over 70 years old. On the surface, this person had a benevolent countenance and was very kind. He had the appearance of a good old man, but in fact, he was very shrewd and extremely eccentric. Dustless had come to this world for another important thing in Chu Nangong's hands, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. And it was during this period of time that Chu Nangong, Li Si, and Fu Su had paid a visit to the Confucian school. Normally, this old fellow was extremely elusive, so it was rather troublesome to find him in the vast Mulberry Sea city. Thus, Dustless chose to sneak into the Confucian school early and wait for Chu Nangong to come to him. This was the best opportunity to seize the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Sage Manor. In the Sangxi region, the Sage Manor's scenery was definitely one of the best. The Confucian school emphasized enjoyment. The mountains were limpid and the water was clear. There were pavilions everywhere. Creak. The back door was suddenly pushed open, and several figures entered one after another. Without exception, all of them were wearing the gifts of the Confucian school. This person was none other than Dustless, Xiaoyu, Tianming, Zhongliang, and the others. However, they had most likely changed their names. Before joining the Confucian school, Dustless had changed his name to Zichen, while Xiaoyu and Tianming were Ziyu and Ziming respectively. I hope these three fellows don't cause any big trouble. Otherwise, given the status of the Confucian school of thought, it would be terrible. Zhongliang was actually quite worried. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. The news of him sneaking into the mechanical city of the Mo clan and helping the Mo clan had probably spread throughout the entire Qin kingdom. At this moment, if the Confucian school were to cause any major trouble and fall into the hands of others, Yingzheng would probably immediately raise the butcher knife to slaughter the Confucian school. Hey, you're already so old. Aren't you ashamed to go to school with us? Tianming looked at Dustless with widened eyes. He was quite jealous. Some people looked dignified no matter what clothes they wore, while others looked like idiots no matter what clothes they wore. The current Dustless was wearing a Confucian robe, and his temperament immediately changed. Originally, Dustless's appearance was close to androgynous, and after a bit of dressing up, it was even harder to tell if he was a man or a woman. The scholarly little sage manor that he was in had already been labeled as a scholar. Combined with Wu Chen's ethereal temperament, he more or less gave off the feeling of a great scholar. On the other hand, Tianming looked like an idiot. Because his clothes were too wide, they almost drooped on his body. Xiaoyu's shoulders and height were slightly better than Tianming's, but Tianming's robe directly dragged on the ground. You guys be careful. Zhongliang looked at the three lazy people, and suddenly lost confidence in his heart. Dustless, Xiaoyu, and Tianming were all wanted criminals. Almost every day, a large number of ordinary people would gather in front of their arrest warrants, and even the people of the Confucian school would gather. If they were discovered by the Qin Kingdom soldiers, the Confucian school would definitely be sent to hell. You guys go back and rest for a while. I heard that young Master Fu Su will be coming soon. Tianming and Xiaoyu, you two don't come out for a while. Zhang Liang raised his voice, and there was a hint of warning in his tone. Then why didn't you restrict him? Tianming pointed at Dustless and complained with great dissatisfaction. I'm the big son of the Mo family. The dignified big brother of the Mo family is restricted. This guy has no power and no influence, but nothing happened to him. It's not fair. Where did this kid get so many words from? Dustless shook his head and left. Following Zhang Liang's guidance, he went straight to a place not far away to rest. The world of adults was not understood by little kids, and it was impossible for them to integrate into the same topic. I don't know when that Chu Nangong will come. Hearing that Fu Su was coming to the Sage Manor, Dustless was quite happy. Without a doubt, this sudden visit was definitely not a good thing. Without a doubt, they were definitely here to cause trouble for the Confucian school. Dustless still remembered that there was a woman called Gongsun Linglong, and Chu Nangong was also in the queue, as was Xing Hun from the Yinyang school. After snatching the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from Chu Nangong, Dustless would immediately retreat. As for Tianming and Xiaoyu, there was no need for them to meddle in other people's business. After all, it had nothing to do with them. Chapter 1825. Time flew by, and it was already the next morning. Perhaps it was because Zhang Liang had informed everyone in advance, but no one cared about the 3 extra students from the Confucian school. Not many people cared about Xiaoyu and Tianming. Dustless, on the other hand, had caused quite a stir. As for the specific reason, he himself did not know. However, it was not until the morning class that Dustless realized why he had attracted so much attention. You look like you're full of wisdom, but you can't even recognize a single word. You can't even write a single word? Faced with such a question, Dustless wanted to cry but had no tears. He was even worse than Tianming. At least this guy could recognize a few words, but Dustless could not even read Xiaozhuan, let alone write it. The thoughts of the ancients are really troublesome, especially the Qin's Xiaozhuan. Because Dustless was too strange, Fu Nian, who came to teach the class, was very angry. This guy was so angry that he made Dustless stand outside as punishment. Tianming, who was supposed to be punished, was now Dustless's turn. He was also called the King of the Bottom. If it was in the past, Dustless would have turned a deaf ear to such a ridiculous punishment. However, now that he still needed to stay in the Confucian school, it would be a tragedy if he was expelled. Dustless had no choice but to use his clone to deal with Fu Nian while he went out to have fun. The scenery in Shanghai is not bad. Let's go out for a walk. Just as Dustless was about to sneak out from the back door, an unexpected figure suddenly appeared from the back door. She obviously knew Dustless and just nodded slightly before leaving. Isn't this Sherlan? Staring at the girl who brushed past him, Dustless was somewhat surprised. He followed her line of sight and saw Sherlan carrying an exquisite wooden bucket, similar to a lunchbox in the future. A strong fragrance came from it. She was probably here to deliver food to the Confucian students. Due to the Confucian school's belief that a gentleman should stay away from the kitchen, it had always been the kitchen's inn that was responsible for providing food to the little Sage Manor, and Sherlan was the kitchen's errand boy. Sherlangu. No, you brat, stop right there. Dustless shouted loudly. Then he realized that he had said something wrong and quickly changed his words. He turned into a breeze and chased after her. Now Sherlan was disguised as a man. She was a handsome young man through and through. Sherlan just quietly looked at Dustless, who was blocking in front of her. Her face was calm, and her breathing was even. She looked very calm, but there were no ripples in the depths of her eyes. There's something wrong with you, kid. Staring at Sherlan, Dustless said meaningfully. You didn't even greet me when you saw me. Are you treating me like heir? Salute? You're not an official or a noble, so what's the point of bowing? It was rare for Sherlan to open her mouth, so she asked calmly, I feel that you are very strange, blocking other people's path for no reason. If there is nothing else, please move aside. Hee hee. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled faintly and said, "How can it be an unintentional mistake? Don't you feel that you are too calm in front of your customers? Confucian scholars are your boss's frequent customers. At the very least, you should be more respectful to me." "What are you trying to say?" With a rare frown, Sherlan asked puzzledly. She keenly sensed that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning. "Don't you think it's strange that a waiter who does odd jobs is too calm in front of his employer? And an employer who is deliberately looking for trouble? If you were shopkeeper Ding now, you might have bowed and apologized. But your unshakable attitude will easily arouse other people's suspicion," Dustless said with a smile. His eyes were full of ridicule and ridicule. "Boring topic." Hearing this, Sherlan's face changed slightly. She took a detour and left. She suddenly felt that it made sense. Facing a person whose status and identity was infinitely higher than her expression didn't change at all. She didn't even care. Wasn't this full of flaws? Sometimes a flawless plan was full of flaws. This guy, Sherlan turned her head and glanced at the smiling Dustless. She suddenly labeled him as a dangerous person. Even though Dustless looked harmless just now, Sherlan felt inexplicably nervous when talking to him. She had never felt this way before. His clear eyes, which seemed bored and lazy, were terrifying as if they could see through people's hearts. "Don't be in a hurry to leave. I still have something to tell you." Dustless pulled Sherlan's little hand like a ghost. He leaned close to her ear and blew a breath of hot air. He said, "I have a friend who has some connections in the Mirage. He invited me to go up as a guest. Do you want to go?" "The Mirage? You mean the Mirage?" Hearing this, Sherlan's heart trembled violently. A trace of disgust and hatred flashed in the depths of her bright eyes. She immediately noticed that Dustless had pulled her hand and touched it twice without leaving a trace. Sherlan immediately broke free. "Don't try to scare me. The Mirage is a place that only those big shots can go up. You are just a powerless Confucian disciple. What kind of backing do you have? Liar. Do you think that you are the head of the Confucian school? It is understandable that he was invited to the Mirage." Sherlan coldly refused, but her quick-witted eyes were rolling around, extremely bright. This cunning little girl. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but smile. He smiled but didn't say anything. After carefully analyzing the meaning behind her words, one would realize that although Sherlan rejected him on the surface, she was actually secretly questioning who Dustless knew. "Still trying to trick me? This little girl is a liar. She thinks too highly of herself." Dustless rolled his eyes. He naturally understood the meaning behind Sherlan's words. Chapter 1826. Tsk. I won't tell you this. All in all, you only need to know that I can enter the Mirage at will. I have a powerful backer. Wu Chen shrugged his shoulders, beaming with joy and complacency. After that, he took out an invitation card that was similar to an invitation letter. "This is..." Sure enough, after seeing the special invitation card, Sherlan's pupils suddenly shrank. She clearly found that the last person who wrote the invitation card was Yin Zhongjuan. "Do you know Yin Zhongjuan?" Sherlan asked suspiciously. She stared at Dustless from head to toe. Except for his handsome face and unique temperament, there seemed to be nothing special about him. How could he know a big shot like Yin Zhongjuan? He was the owner of the Mirage. "Of course I don't know him." Dustless shook his head and said with a smile. "However, I know a friend. His family is in the business of medicinal herbs, and is often responsible for delivering goods to the Shenglu building." He picked up the invitation card in his hand and said, "Only with this can you enter the Shenglu building at will." "Is that so?" Hearing this, Sherlan did not doubt him. She just nodded in confusion and believed his words. It was a fact that a large number of medicinal herbs were often sent to the Mirage. The fish has taken the bait. Looking at Sherlan, who was deep in thought, Dustless laughed secretly. Of course he had made up this nonsense. Where did this invitation card come from? As the saying went, it was easier to become an official if one had connections in the court. With Yueshan, an invisible subordinate, it was easy for Dustless to get this kind of invitation card. "Can you really enter the Mirage?" Sherlan looked at Dustless with a longing look. Although she concealed the longing in her words cleverly, Dustless heard it clearly. This was normal. Sherlan's brother was caught in the mirage. She had always wanted to sneak into the coffin in the sea, but there was no suitable opportunity. Moreover, there were many experts in the mirage. If she sneaked in rashly, she would definitely get burned. Yes, I can, but, after glancing at Sherlan, Dustless lowered his voice and said, "But why should I take you in? What if you have evil intentions and do something terrible? Won't I be implicated? I promise to be obedient." Hearing this, Sherlan hurriedly put on the look of an obedient child, afraid that Dustless would refuse. She raised her arms high, and was about to make a vow to impress Dustless. "I have no proof. How am I supposed to determine if you're telling the truth? Furthermore, your attitude toward me earlier was simply too vile. It's better that I find someone else to go to the mirage with me." Dustless purposely turned around and left. "Wait." Seeing Dustless leave, Sherlan hesitated for a moment before she hurriedly chased after him and asked, "What conditions do you have? As long as I can fulfill them, I will definitely not refuse." This guy. Why does he have to jump into the fire pit himself? Hearing this, Dustless's mind was moved. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, and he couldn't help but laugh shamelessly. On the surface, he looked very wretched. "Sherlan, if I'm not wrong, you should be a girl, right?" Immediately after, there was another wave of strange laughter. Sherlan's face instantly turned extremely pale. She already vaguely understood the dirty conditions Dustless proposed. This guy is really shameless. Sherlan's pretty face flashed with anger. Since Dustless knew that she was a girl, he still proposed conditions and even shamelessly threatened her. In particular, his wretched laughter made Sherlan feel even more uncomfortable. Sherlan's calm eyes gradually became colder. "Your invitation letter. I will accept it. It would be impolite for me to decline." Sherlan, who originally looked weak, suddenly became extremely vigorous. Her toes lightly touched the ground, and her body rapidly flew over like a migrating bird. Her soft jade-like hand had already grabbed Dustless's invitation letter. "You want to use force?" Dustless narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous light shot out from the slits of his eyes. Too slow. A strange light swept across his body, and Dustless instantly retreated dozens of meters away, as if he had teleported. How did you do that?" Realizing that she had grabbed nothing, Sherlan's beautiful eyes widened several times. She didn't even notice Dustless retreating, and she didn't even see how he moved. "Ever since Mo family's mechanical city, my bounty has been increased to 1 million gold by that guy Zheng. If I was casually caught by a little girl like you, I would have died a long time ago." Dustless mercilessly attacked Sherlan, and said indifferently, "With your strength, you still need to cultivate for thousands of years to catch up with my shadow." Arrogant. Sherlan didn't appreciate his words, and once again rushed towards Dustless. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. However, the scene was the same as before. After the sharp sound of breaking through the air, Dustless evaporated on the spot again. Sherlan helplessly realized that she couldn't catch up with Dustless's speed. She couldn't even see the speed of others, let alone catch up with Dustless. "Do I have to agree to this guy's shameless condition?" Sherlan thought indignantly. When she thought of Dustless's disgusting condition, her eyes turned red, and she looked quite aggrieved. Her brother was caught by Yin Zhongyuan, and now she encountered a shameless person. Sherlan's heart was about to collapse. "Ahem, Miss Sherlan, I haven't said my condition yet, right? Please don't act like you are about to be violated. I feel very wronged." Dustless was depressed when he saw this. It seemed that he hadn't said his condition yet. It seemed that Sherlan had misunderstood. Chapter 1827. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing Sherlan's aggrieved and sad look, Dustless suddenly felt a little apologetic. Her brother had been captured by Yin Zhongyuan, and she had come to the unfamiliar Shanghai alone. He felt somewhat embarrassed if he continued to tease her. "That old fellow Funyan spoke a lot of nonsense just now, and I was scolded by him for an entire class." Dustless casually found a place to lean on, exposing his back to Sherlan. He hummed and said, "Help me massage my back. You have to be good at it." Otherwise, I will refuse to take you to the Mirage. Your condition is that simple? Shirlan's eyes were more or less filled with astonishment as she stared at Wu Chun. In her opinion, Wu Chun should be the one to raise the price and take advantage of the situation. What do you think? Wu Chun asked rhetorically. He stared at her graceful body and sized it up. Suddenly, he smiled ambiguously and said, "Do you want us to do something more fun than back massaging?" When he mentioned fun, Dustless deliberately emphasized the word fun. "No, I'll help you massage your back." Hearing this, Shirlan shook her head like a rattledrum. She took the initiative to approach Dustless, raised her fist, and gently knocked on his back. Faint ripples spread out in her calm eyes. This guy is so strange. Shirlan stared at Dustless's side profile. She felt that it was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't remember it. Have we met somewhere before? I feel that you seem somewhat familiar. After a while, Shirlan couldn't help but ask curiously. Of course we have met before. Dustless said in an extremely certain tone. Have you really seen him before? Shirlan was at a loss. She went through all the dusty memories in her mind, but she didn't have any impression of Dustless. Smart all your life, but stupid this time. This sentence is not false at all. Dustless remained silent. Shirlan went to the wanted poster every day to look at the name list. She must have felt that Dustless was familiar. After all, he had a bounty of 1,000,000 gold taels. It was normal for Shirlan to have an impression of him. Speaking of which, you look a little similar to that Dustless on the wanted poster. Shirlan's eyes suddenly changed. She looked at Dustless with suspicion. Dustless's mouth twitched a few times as he asked in a low voice, "Are you sure it's just a likeness?" "That's obviously me, okay?" Dustless felt like he was going crazy. He had changed his appearance and become a scholarly disciple, and his name had also changed to Zichen. But Shirlan had said that he only looked like one. In short, Dustless had been dealt a heavy blow. "You're definitely not him." Shaking her head, Shirlan carefully shook her head again. "The contrast is too great." "The contrast is too great?" Dustless put on a fake smile as he touched his nose and asked, "What do you think is too great?" "In fact, I feel that I'm too similar to the Dustless on the wanted poster. We're practically the same." "It's not the same. Please don't insult the person I respect the most. If you don't, even if I'm not your match, I'll take you down with me." Shirlan shook her head stubbornly and said in admiration, "He single-handedly dealt a heavy blow to the Qin army that besieged the house of Mo, and even single-handedly dealt a heavy blow to Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha. He's the talk of the world. How can he be as sloppy as you?" Dustless was speechless. He could only stare and then sigh. Everyone has a different side. You don't know who that Dustless is. Perhaps even if that Dustless is right in front of you, you'll still treat him like a stranger, and even look down on him. At least he's stronger than you. Shirlan snorted softly and said with certainty. In her opinion, this Zichen in front of her belonged to the frivolous type. To put it bluntly, he was just like a playboy. Dustless on the wanted poster, on the other hand, had single-handedly repelled the Qin army and Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha. How could such an unparalleled expert be a sloppy person like this Zichen? This guy actually admires me so much. Looking at Shirlan's fascinated eyes, Dustless more or less felt that the affairs of the world were unpredictable. Unknowingly, he had gained a heavenly beauty as a fan. Speaking of which, when will you bring me into the Mirage? Thinking of her brother who was still in the Mirage, Shirlan asked expectantly and anxiously. Let's wait for a few months. After thinking for a while, Dustless gave an answer that made Shirlan want to vomit blood. A few months? Are you trying to act shamelessly? Shirlan's eyes widened slightly. She gave Dustless a punch in annoyance and asked angrily, "Are the disciples of the Confucian school so untrustworthy? Although I promised to bring you into the Mirage, but I didn't specify the exact time." Dustless shrugged as if it had nothing to do with him. "You." Hearing this, Shirlan's pretty face was covered with frost. She did not expect Dustless to play word games. "Now, everything upstairs is still being prepared, and you might not achieve your goal," Dustless explained calmly. "I just don't want to waste my effort. You saw what happened a few days ago, right? The Yin Yang school has just arrived in Shanghai, and all the preparations have not been completed. This seems to be true. Sherlan nodded noncommittally. Yin Zhongjuan and the others had just arrived in Shanghai, and the follow-up preparations had not been completed. If they sneaked in rashly now, they would only end up empty-handed. Her brother might not be on the Mirage yet, so there was no harm in waiting for the time being. All right, you can go and deliver the food to them. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that Sherlan could leave. Before she left, he said something that confused Sherlan. She did not understand what Dustless was saying and what he was trying to express. Such a lousy fan is too unprofessional. How dare she say that the original is a fake? She will definitely not be able to get an autograph in the future. Chapter 1828. Dustless complained as he walked, expressing his dissatisfaction with Sherlan's lousy fan. He felt extremely unlucky to be mistaken as the real deal. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on Sherlan. When he entered the Mo clan, for the sake of some unnecessary trouble, Zhang Liang specially helped Wuxia to use a disguise technique to change some features of his appearance. It was normal that Sherlan couldn't recognize Dustless. Forget it. True gold fears no fire. You'll know who the real deal is in the future. Dustless walked out of the back door of the Confucian school and glanced at Sherlan before walking away. As for today's lesson, he left it to his clone. Dustless was bored by the Confucian school's gentleman's path. He was used to being a villain, and the noble script of a gentleman didn't suit him. Let's go to the Mo family's new base for now. Dustless strolled aimlessly on the streets. He wanted to go to Pao Ding Inn, but he suddenly remembered that the Mo family had retreated to the wilderness. Dustless changed his direction and walked towards the deep mountains and forests outside the city. This is the person who made Wei Zhuang fail? In a mansion, a pale-faced child looked at the wanted poster on the table. He frowned when he saw the unprecedented bounty on it. He was surprised that this person could make Wei Zhuang retreat. Yes, Master Xinghun. The beautiful woman beside the young man nodded. She was emitting a murderous aura and a bone-piercing chill. The person on the wanted poster was Dustless. These two people were Great Ximing and Xinghun from the Yinyang school. You hate him a lot. Xinghun turned his head and looked at Great Ximing in surprise. He could feel the cold murderous aura very clearly. I have some grudges against him. Great Ximing nodded with a bitter expression, but he didn't mention the reason. Damn you, you better not let me catch you. Otherwise, I will make you regret being alive. Great Ximing did not show any emotions on his face, but his heart was burning with rage. Great Ximing had her reasons for not mentioning the grudge between her and Dustless. She couldn't possibly tell Xinghun that damned Dustless had peed in front of her. Young Ximing, and the moon goddess. How could Great Ximing say such words that could kill? His Excellency Donghuang said that the traitors of the Mo family have all come to Shanghai. Xinghun did not probe further. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked into the distant void. He said with certainty, His Excellency Donghuang is unfathomable. His astrology has never been wrong. I have a feeling that we will meet that fellow sooner or later. This is inevitable. As long as Dustless is in Shanghai, meeting him is only a matter of time. Great Ximing agreed wholeheartedly. She had been patrolling every night to look for Dustless. She hoped that the heavens would give her face and kill Dustless if she met him. Ever since the previous incident, Great Ximing had a shadow in her sleep. Sometimes, she would dream of this enemy of hers peeing in front of the moon goddess, young Ximing and herself. At night, the dark sky was filled with bright stars. The night breeze was nice. On the deserted street, only a thin figure was walking leisurely. This outfit is still the most comfortable. When he returned from the Mo family's stronghold, it was already midnight. Dustless stretched his body and felt that the outfit given to him by Duan Murong was much more comfortable. The Confucians paid attention to the rules of their sect, and their attire was more formal. It was not suitable for a lazy person like Dustless. It's already so late? You're still out? Aren't you afraid of danger? A malicious voice was heard. Dustless was slightly stunned. He looked over and saw a burly man walking out of the alley. So it's you. Dustless was slightly stunned. When he saw the burly man, a look of surprise flashed across his face. This man was carrying a huge sword on his back. The body of the sword was very rough and did not have a sharp edge. However, it was shockingly heavy. This burly man looked ferocious. The left side of his chest was half naked and his cheeks were covered in tattoos. His appearance was also very scary. "You are Shang-Chi of the farmer's sect?" When he saw this man, Dustless was puzzled and asked, "I don't think I have any grudges with you. Are you here to take revenge on me?" "I'm here to look for Gunya." Shang-Chi did not hide his intentions and said in a low voice, "I heard from Wuxia that you seem to have an inexplicable relationship with Gunya. When you were at the Mo family, you were even allies in the trenches." "I see. I understand why you're here." Dustless smiled at Shang-Chi and said, "You want to ask me where Gunya is hiding, right? I do know where he is, but the price is a little high. No matter how I look at it, you look like a pauper. You can't afford this price." This guy is really good at insulting people, Shang-Chi thought to himself. After thinking about it for a long time, he finally understood what Dustless meant. He was actually mocking him for being weak. "I can't deny that I'm no match for you." Shang-Chi did not waste his breath. He had heard of Dustless's achievements. He had single-handedly defeated all the members of Quicksand, including Wei Zhuang. He knew that he could not do that. "So, you can state a condition. After I help you in exchange, you have to tell me where Gunya is hiding." Shang-Chi stated his condition. Shang-Chi had been imprisoned because of Gunya. Hence, they were like fire and water. When enemies met, they would be filled with hatred. In exchange? Dustless frowned slightly. He did not expect Shang-Chi, who was as stubborn as steel, to be so cowardly. Moreover, this condition seemed to be quite good. He really did have something that he needed help with. "After you help me kill someone, I'll tell you where Gunya is." Chapter 1829. You're willing to accept my conditions? That's great. Shang-Chi revealed a rare smile. If Wu Chen did not agree to his request, Shang-Chi would also be helpless. If they met in battle, he would definitely lose. Since he could not defeat Wu Chen in a fight, if he rashly challenged Wu Chen, the result would be no different from setting himself on fire. After all, Wei Zhuang's Quicksand and a large number of Qin troops, in addition to Gong Shuqiu family's mechanical beasts, were all crushed by Wu Chen. With such a shocking strength, if one claimed to be the second in the world, absolutely no one would dare to claim to be the first in the world. My conditions are very simple. Help me kill Chu Nangong and take the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from him. Dustless pondered for a while and gave his answer. "I can't do that." Dustless thought that Shang-Chi would agree on the spot. Who knew that this guy would stare at him with a fiery face? "Sir, are you joking?" Shang-Chi clenched his fists tightly, making cracking sounds. He said angrily, "Don't you know that Chu Nangong and I—" "No, you don't know the relationship between Luo Shu and me?" "Of course I know. You are just Zhao Gao's dog." Dustless replied calmly. "But, so what? If you can't complete my mission, don't even think about knowing Gunya's location. You are purposely making things difficult for me." Shang-Chi snorted unhappily and said angrily, "Luo Shu's 6 sword slaves listen to Zhao Gao, but don't forget that Li Si is Zhao Gao's boss." "So what?" Dustless was still unmoved. It wasn't hard to tell that Li Si's status was higher than Zhao Gao's. In other words, the entire Luo Shu listens to Li Si. I am also one of them, and am under their control. That Chu Nangong is Li Si's follower. How do you want me to kill him?" Shang-Chi asked gloomily. He was getting angrier. "So there is such a relationship. That means that Chu Nangong is on your side?" "But," Dustless said coldly, "what does this have to do with me? You useless trash. You don't even dare to kill an old man. What's the use of keeping you?" Swish. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless instantly transformed into a stream of light and flew straight towards Shang-Chi. No wonder Dustless is rumored to be a godly expert. This speed is so fast. Seeing this, Shang-Chi's pupils suddenly shrank. His tiger body shook. When he was about to pull out Ju Kei, it was already too late. "You're too slow. Just the moment you draw your sword is enough for me to kill you dozens of times." Dustless stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were as calm as water. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Shang-Chi. However, Shang-Chi had not even drawn his sword yet. Die. Hearing Dustless's disdainful tone, Shang-Chi's killing intent erupted like a flood. The power in his right arm was unleashed to the maximum, and his great ravager swept out with the force of 1,000 caddies. Buzz buzz buzz. Not only that, but Great Ravager's broad blade was also emitting a transparent white light as it emitted a clear cry. You're too weak. Facing the incoming radiance, Dustless did not dodge. The white light that covered the blade was filled with boundless destructive power. Having been in this world for some time, Dustless knew that it was the so-called true chi. Ha! Shang-Chi shouted loudly. He used all his strength and true chi to bet on this move. Swish! 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 The huge blade was about to reach Dustless's head and split it into two. However, Dustless's sudden move made Shang-Chi stunned. Even the sword that he had thrown out almost fell to the ground. After coming back to his senses, Shang-Chi was even more furious. Under the influence of anger, the power in his hand increased a little. You want to catch my attack with your bare hands? Do you think Juke is a fire stick? The anger in Shang-Chi's heart surged. Dustless's actions were simple and casual. Facing Shang-Chi's incoming blade, he only calmly raised his right arm that was even more delicate than a girl's hand. It was no wonder that Shang-Chi was so angry. Taking a step back, even if Juke was a fire stick, it was not something that could be caught with one hand. Dustless's disdain for him had hurt Shang-Chi's self-esteem. Boom boom boom. The thick and broad sword slammed into Wu Chen's body, and the genuine energy that covered the great sword scattered in all directions. The wooden houses on both sides of the street instantly suffered a fatal blow, and were instantly flattened by the absolute power. Humph, this is the price for looking down on me. Looking at the miserable situation around him, Shang-Chi's lips curled up slightly, revealing a proud smile. However, he looked at Dustless again. He thought that this guy would be turned into minced meat, but this is the power of Juke? It's really not worth complimenting. The mocking tone fell into Shang-Chi's ears. His rough old face twitched a few times as he stared at the smiling Dustless. Shang-Chi's eyes widened a few times, almost popping out as he tried to find some wounds on Dustless's body. However, the sad thing was, after looking at him for a long time, Shang-Chi still found that Dustless was still alive and kicking. This, Shang-Chi showed a rare look of panic and shouted in disbelief. Impossible, he was attacked by Juke with full power. Not only did he not die, but he is also perfectly fine. You are too weak. Dustless grabbed Shang-Chi's Juke with his right hand and then raised his left fist. Seeing this, Shang-Chi's face changed slightly. He said in a low voice, "We don't have any conflicts of interest, so there is no need for an unnecessary battle. We can cooperate and take our own benefits. You have no reason to fight with me." Dustless looked at Shang-Chi with disdain and sneered. "The reason why I beat you up is not because of any benefits, but because you wasted my time for half a day and even dared to reject my conditions. If I don't teach you a lesson, where will I put my face?" Boom boom. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless's fist flew toward Shang-Chi. Chapter 1830. Looking at the incoming fist, Shang-Chi's expression changed drastically. "Ah!" Shang-Chi roared loudly and used all his strength to pull out the Great Ravager. However, Wu Chen's seemingly weak right hand was surprisingly strong. Shang-Chi couldn't resist at all. He was so tired that he gasped for breath, but he still couldn't pull out the Great Ravager. At the same time, Dustless's left fist was about to hit him. Shoo shoo shoo. At the critical moment, Shang-Chi decisively threw away the Great Ravager and dodged the fatal fist. Humph, as a swordsman, you threw away your sword. You want to kill Chu Nangong with your level? Seeing Shang-Chi retreat, Dustless sneered and pulled the Great Ravager's body. Damn it! Shang-Chi's body was pulled back again. There was a metal chain at the hilt of the Great Ravager. It was 3 to 4 meters long. On the other end, there was a metal collar around Shang-Chi's neck. As long as the Great Ravager was held by Dustless, he couldn't escape. Get out of my way. After pulling Shang-Chi back with brute force, Dustless punched out with his left fist. Ka ka ka. Shang-Chi's sturdy chest was hit by a strong force. Ka 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 sounds could be heard. It sounded like his sternum was broken. However, this wasn't the most horrifying thing. Shang-Chi's chest caved in and a fist mark could be seen. Pfft. Shang-Chi immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Wuxia loosened his grip on the Great Ravager. Shang-Chi's huge body was sent flying several feet away by the punch. He lay on the ground half dead and only had a weak breath left. Weak. Seeing this, Dustless curled his lips. Just as he was about to go back, he suddenly squinted his eyes. You too, after peeping for so long, it's time to show yourself. On the left side, in a dark alley, two faint shadows appeared from time to time. Although he couldn't see their specific appearance, it was obvious that one of them was tall and the other was short. Moreover, their strength was not bad, and their ability to hide their aura was quite good. What caught Dustless's attention the most was the familiar scent he sensed from the short man. Both of them are from the school of Inyang. That brat should have formed his star soul, right? The two of them gradually walked out of the darkness. With the help of the hazy moonlight, they saw Great Si Ming and Xing Han, one of the two guardians of the Inyang school. Your Excellency has good skills. Shang-Chi is Zhao Gao's subordinate. To be valued by him, your strength is self-evident. However, he was defeated so easily by you. The title of #1 in the world is indeed well-deserved. An immature yet mature voice came from the astral soul. He glanced at the half-dead Shang-Chi, and there was an unconcealable shock on his face. #1 in the world? Since when did I have such a nickname? Dustless wasn't interested in this title at all. A tall tree attracts the wind. In order to become famous, some people would definitely think of ways to challenge Dustless and replace him. It doesn't matter when it started. The point is that this title didn't bury its brilliance when it landed on you. You deserve it, Xing Han said calmly. Is that so? Then I'm really shocked. Dustless pretended to be flustered. Then he looked at Great Si Ming and Xing Han in fear and said, both of you came with ill intentions. Are you trying to snatch away my title of #1 in the world? That's not it. Seeing Dustless's fearful look, Xing Han's calm heart rippled. He looked unhappy. He felt that Dustless made such an exaggerated expression on purpose to mock him and Great Si Ming. To be honest, I'm here to invite you to join the school of Inyang, Xing Han said shockingly, and the treatment will not be lower than Yueshin and I. Join the school of Inyang? Dustless frowned slightly and said bluntly, although you are one of the two great imperial masters of the Qin kingdom and the left guardian of the school of Inyang, you shouldn't have such authority. His status was not lower than Yueshin and Xing Han, which meant that he was also a guardian. Dustless didn't think that Xing Han and Great Si Ming could casually appoint someone as a guardian of the school of Inyang. That's right. This is beyond my authority. Xing Han didn't deny it. No one had the authority to do this. Of course, there was one exception. To be honest, this was promised by His Excellency Dong Huang. You don't have to worry about being deceived. Xing Han finally mentioned an important person. Dong Huang Tai. Upon hearing this, Dustless murmured subconsciously. He looked shocked. After all, he had never met Dong Huang Tai before. However, Dong Huang Tai had promised him the position of guardian. This showed how much Dong Huang Tai valued Dustless. It's His Excellency Dong Huang. Upon hearing Dustless call out Dong Huang Tai's name, Xing Han reminded him unhappily. The position of guardian is indeed tempting. Dustless smiled and nodded. Then he changed the topic and asked, what if I refuse? Refuse? Upon hearing this, Xing Han laughed sinisterly. Of course you can refuse. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the sun rise again. Just the two of you. Wu Chen snorted in disdain and mocked. In my life, what I hate the most is the kind of idiot who doesn't have any strength but likes to be arrogant. Not to mention a mere star soul like you. Even if Dong Huang Tai were to carry my palanquin, he wouldn't be worthy. You are courting death. Xing Han was stunned for a moment. Then a cold murderous intent shot out from his eyes. He gathered a large amount of vital energy in his hands and quickly gathered it. A huge blue invisible blade appeared in the blink of an eye. Great Si Ming, who couldn't wait to take revenge, attacked immediately. He formed a few unfamiliar warlocks with his hands and a blood-red skeleton appeared. Chapter 1831. Looks like you guys are well prepared. Dustless glanced at the blood-red skull and gave Great Seeming a look of admiration before ignoring him. His main opponent this time was Xinghun and not Great Seeming. Xinghun's strength was above Great Seeming. Of course we are prepared. You and Xingqi are fighting so fiercely that it's hard for others not to notice. Xinghun stared at Dustless with his eyes burning like torches. His evil face was overflowing with demonic aura. Moreover, I would like to see how powerful you are. Having said that, Xinghun glanced at Great Seeming. Go to hell. Great Seeming nodded and condensed a blood-red skull hand on his forehead. A strange cry came from it. Then, it pounced on Wuchen at an extremely fast speed. It was so fast that the naked eye could not even see it moving. Bloody skull handprint. As soon as he finished his sentence, the blood-red skull surrounded Dustless and trapped him in the skull. Bloody skull handprint? It sounds scary, but I just want to tell you that even the golden handprint is useless against me, let alone the bloody handprint. Wu Chen, who was in the depths of the blood-red skull, had a calm expression. He looked as if nothing had happened to him. This guy isn't affected? Seeing this, Great Seeming opened his cherry lips instinctively as shock filled his face. He is indeed as mysterious and unfathomable as the rumors say. Xinghun frowned. Dustless was the first person who was able to talk to them unscathed after being hit by the bloody skull handprint. Xinghun naturally did not suspect that Great Seeming had gone easy on him. The bloody skull handprint was dark red, and its genuine energy was thick. The color was almost the same as real blood. Not only did Great Seeming not reduce his strength, he even used his full strength. On the other hand, Dustless was not only unscathed, he was even humming a tune. How infuriating. You'd better restrain yourself a little. The consequences of my anger are very serious. Great Seeming was struck hard by Wu Chen. His delicate face was now filled with killing intent, and his delicate face was now covered in a layer of cold frost. The skeleton blood handprint was Great Seeming's proudest move, but it did not work on Dustless. Great Seeming was really annoyed, especially when he saw Dustless's calm face. The calmer Dustless looked, the more annoyed Great Seeming was. You bastard, give me. The night is long. Don't worry. Xinghun waved his hand and stopped Great Seeming, who was about to continue attacking. He looked at the crack on the ground under Dustless's feet and said, Your bloody skull handprint has indeed become more powerful. Look at the ground under Dustless's feet. Caw caw caw. Cracks visible to the naked eye appeared on the thick bluestone slabs. As time passed, the cracks grew larger and larger, gradually becoming a ghastly sight. But it's a fact that Dustless isn't affected. Great Seeming said in a defeated tone. His best move couldn't affect Wu Chen at all, not even the most basic of effects. Look carefully. I finally understand why Wei Zhuang lost to this guy. Xinghun took a deep breath. Upon closer inspection, he was shocked to discover that Wu Chen, who was shrouded in the blood-red skull, was surrounded by energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. Wave after wave, the blood-red vital energy in the skull kept attacking him. But what was unbelievable was that Wu Chen was not affected at all. The collapse of the bluestone slabs on the ground was the best example. It was enough to show the power of the bloody skull handprint. It's not that you're useless. It's just that this guy's body is ridiculously tough. With your current strength, you won't be able to move him for the time being. After a while, Xinghun gave an answer that made Great Seeming even more speechless. You're not trying to hurt me on purpose, are you? Great Seeming glanced at Xinghun with dissatisfaction. It was rare for him to grumble. Hey, the two of you have been talking nonsense for so long. Don't you dare to attack me? Dustless grumbled. Feeling bored, he glanced at the blood-red skull, and an even stronger wave of energy burst out from his body. Bang bang bang. Wu Chen's body erupted with even more majestic power in an instant. The blood-red skulls that were wandering around his body were violently impacted. They did not even have room to resist and instantly disappeared without a trace. Boom boom boom. The houses on both sides of the street that were dozens of feet away were severely damaged, and turned into ruins. Is this something a human can do? Great Ming looked at Dustless in horror. A distance of 10 feet was equivalent to 3 meters. A distance of 10 feet was naturally 33 meters. In other words, Dustless didn't even lift a finger. He just used his aura to destroy the surrounding buildings that were dozens of meters away. This is impossible. Xing Han was also shocked. Whether Dong Huangtai was able to do such a thing was still a question. However, a nobody like Wu Chen was able to do it. This made the two of them feel that it was a fantasy story. Before rising up, Dustless was just a nameless minor character. I finally understand why His Excellency Dong Huang thinks so highly of this guy. Such strength. A strange look flashed across Great Ming's eyes. She was one of Xing Han's subordinates, and had a certain understanding of this guardian's strength. Although he was unreasonably strong and was the rarest super genius in the Yinyang sect for hundreds of years, compared to Dustless Xing Han, who was a dazzling light, suddenly became insignificant. After all, his opponent was the inextinguishable bright moon. What are you looking at? When Xing Han noticed the strange look in Great Ming's eyes, he was extremely displeased and warned loudly, "Stabilize your mind. Be careful and focus on dealing with your enemy." "Yes, Sir Xing Han." Great Ming quickly turned his head around. "Damn it." Xing Han's face darkened. Even if Great Ming didn't say it, Xing Han knew what Great Ming was thinking. Xing Han, who had always been the main character, had become a foil to Dustless. This grievance made him extremely hostile towards Dustless. Chapter 1832. As a genius, it was inevitable that he would be arrogant. Even though Xing Han did not show it, it was normal for geniuses to be arrogant. But now, he was being looked down upon by his own subordinate. Anyone would find it hard to accept such a thing, much less someone as young as Xing Han. As one of the two great guardians of the Yinyang school and the state guardian of the Qin Empire, Xing Han's abilities were undeniable. His position was also unprecedented, and was not any weaker than Yueshan. Dong Huangtai also thought highly of him. "I want to see where your limit is." Xing Han's eyes turned cold and dark as he shot out air blades from his hands. "Ha!" With a low shout, Xing Han's cold and desolate eyes were as swift as thunder, and as swift as the wind, with a ruthless look in them. Swish, swish, swish. His two hands suddenly crossed, and the chi blades gathered between his left and right hands extended for several meters without limit. It seemed that the two huge chi blades were about to crush Wu Chen. Condensing air blades? Looks good on the surface. Dustless also made a counterattack as he glanced at the cold light coming from his left and right. Boom. The corner of Wu Chen's clothes suddenly swelled up, and an extraordinary power swept out. A perfect circle of protection appeared around him in an instant. Shinra Tensei. Boom. At the same time, the sharp cold light also all blasted over. Immediately, a muffled explosion was heard. What is that? Sensing that his chi blade had struck an unknown hard object, Xing Han's hands, which were connected to the chi blade, trembled violently. Both his arms were numb from the impact. He turned his gaze towards Wu Chen, and his pupils suddenly froze. He saw a circle of protection around Dustless. The air blades were unable to break through this layer of protection. It was even more impossible to cut it apart. They could not even leave a mark. "You actually want to use such a vulgar move to defeat me? You are too childish." Dustless looked at the air blades on both sides of his body and commented disdainfully. "Xing Han, right? A rare genius from the Yinyang school, right? I can't even muster up the desire to kill someone of your standard. You are too weak." Why couldn't he raise his killing intent? The reason was simple. Xing Han was simply too weak. Dustless didn't even have the slightest bit of interest. In the past, his opponents were all far stronger than Xing Han. "You bastard." Xing Han's face darkened as he finally understood what Great Ming was thinking. "What are you staring at? Come at me together." Seeing the shock on Great Ming's face, the admiration for Dustless's strength, and the fear on his face, Xing Han was filled with anger, and all of it was directed at Great Ming. "I understand." Hearing that, Great Ming quickly nodded his head, but he was displeased with Xing Han. "You were slapped in the face, but you blame me. This is ridiculous. You deserve to be mocked and slandered. Buzz buzz buzz. Great Sima then made a few mysterious hand seals, which were similar to Dustless's hand seals. Soon after, Great Simi's blood-red hands released waves of blood-red mist that could be seen with the naked eye. Then, an inexplicably strong smell of blood suddenly descended. Her hands, Dustless squinted his eyes. Great Simi's blood-red hands looked extraordinary. They were even harder than swords. In the original book, Great Sima also used this pair of hands to fight against Tianming's non-offensive technique. The school of Yinyang was indeed unique. If it wasn't for silver, the school of Yinyang would definitely be the #1 sect in the world. It was a pity that they were unlucky this time. They chose Dustless as their opponent and blocked his path. Since both parties were pursuing the 7 constellations of the Blue Dragon, someone was destined to be eliminated. Yinyang Palm Seal. In an instant, a Yinyang Tai Chi 8 trigrams diagram appeared, all of which were condensed from extremely dense steam. Boom boom boom. It was just a simple Tai Chi diagram, but who would have expected it to evolve into hundreds and thousands of concentrated attacks? Countless genuine Chi ripples came from the void. The school of Yinyang's strength is average, but you have many dazzling techniques. Looking at the concentrated attacks, Dustless's eyes spun rapidly as he muttered, "Heavenly reflection." Boom boom boom. In the void, the flame of Nirvana was ignited. The evil black flame appeared out of nowhere and devoured everything. Great Simi's technique could not escape this fate. In just a few breaths' time, it disappeared without a trace. Black flames. Great Simi's pupils constricted as he saw his painstakingly planned attack being dispelled in one go. It was as if he was pushed back by a wave of overwhelming power. He felt even more frustrated and depressed. "Are you paying attention to your back?" A sinister voice suddenly sounded. Wu Chen turned his head slightly and saw that it was Xing Han, who had a stern face. The sharp air blade pierced through Dustless's body, leaving a ghastly wound. "You're done for this time." Seeing Dustless's pierced heart, Xing Han smiled proudly. He stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "It's not wrong for someone like you to die in my hands." However, Xing Han was instantly dumbfounded. Bam! Wu Chen's corpse suddenly exploded. Right under Xing Han's nose, a dramatic scene of a living person disappearing and turning into a piece of wood. "Brat, that was just my doppelganger technique. Also, I would like to ask, are you paying attention to your back?" The cold figure gave Xing Han goosebumps. He turned his head and saw the expressionless Dustless. Chapter 1833. Xing Han was not the only one who was at a loss. Even Great Sima was in the same state. That strange moment just now was like a magic trick. The dead Dustless had turned into a block of wood. What made everyone speechless was that Dustless had not only turned into a block of wood, but he had also slashed Xing Han. The sharp blade radiance pierced through Xing Han's body from the back, causing him to bleed profusely. "Where did you come from?" Xing Han stared at Dustless in disbelief. His face turned even paler. "That slash just now definitely killed you. Idiot, didn't I tell you that it was just a doppelganger technique?" Dustless shook his head and glanced at Xing Han. He mocked loudly. "You are the guardian of the school of Yinyang. You are just so. Dustless looked at the ferocious Xing Han and shook his head disappointedly. "To think that I was looking forward to it. Looks like Dong Huangtai is just so. How dare you insult His Excellency Dong Huang?" Hearing that Dustless was looking down on his idol, Xing Han's cold face turned even colder. Even flames could be frozen. Ha! He mustered the last of his strength and a dangerous radiance shot out from his hands. He swept it towards Dustless without hesitation. His method was extremely cruel and bloody as he charged towards Dustless's head. Xing Han had thought that his abdomen had been pierced, and that he was at the end of his tether. However, this rare genius of the school of Yinyang was indeed extraordinary. He still had the strength to struggle, and used a fatal air blade at the critical moment. "You have won. You are indeed Lord Xing Han." Seeing this, Great Sima clenched his fists excitedly. His face was filled with joy. He saw that the air blade was about to hit Dustless again. However, Dustless still looked lazy and did not seem to notice it. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He had thought that Dustless's head would be chopped off on the spot. Who knew? Clang, clang, clang. The toughness of Dustless's head was too high. And indeed, something had been sliced off. However, the thing that had been sliced off was the chi blade condensed from his astral souls. As for Dustless's head, it was completely fine. What kind of monster is this? How could he be fine after being hit by a chi blade that was twice as powerful? What's more, it's in a situation where you're defenseless. Xing Hun's conviction had completely collapsed and his voice was trembling. Brat, you really know how to play tricks. Suddenly he felt an itch on his scalp. Turning his head to take a look, Dustless discovered that the broken chi blade had yet to disappear. Of course, there was also his numb astral soul. Looks like the knife wound wasn't fatal. Otherwise you wouldn't have this kind of skill. With a cold laugh, Dustless suddenly grabbed Xing Hun and threw him into the air. Just as he was about to hit the ground, Dustless kicked Xing Hun away like a football. Bang! The heavy kick landed on Xing Hun's abdomen. Xing Hun immediately rolled and crawled, flying tens of meters away. He laid on the ground miserably and had suffered an unprecedented injury. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Sir Xing Hun, are you all right? Great Siming hurried over and looked at the dying Xing Hun. He was disgusted by Dustless's strength. He shifted his gaze and saw Xing Hun's lazy look. When Xing Hun launched a sneak attack on Dustless, he didn't even notice it. Clearly, he was distracted. It wasn't hard to see that Dustless didn't care about this battle at all. Both of them weren't on the same level. Great Siming, are you prepared to sacrifice yourself for the Yin Yang sect? After glaring at Dustless viciously, Xing Hun's cold gaze landed on Great Siming. Hearing this, Great Siming was taken aback and hesitated. If he could continue living, no one would want to die. However, looking at Xing Hun's cold gaze, Great Siming was terrified. He knew that if he said what he was thinking, Xing Hun would be furious. He immediately changed his words. Of course, dying for the Yin Yang sect is my life's wish. Well said, I admire you. Xing Hun nodded his head in satisfaction. If it weren't for his severe injuries, he would have applauded Great Siming. Move your ear closer. I have a perfect escape plan. Xing Hun hooked his finger and blew cold air. Combined with his blood-stained face, he looked extremely demonic. Sir Xing Hun, please tell me. I will do my best. Great Siming nodded, but immediately regretted it. Xing Hun grabbed Great Siming's arm at lightning speed. His lips curled into a cruel smile, and his cold eyes were emotionless, causing Great Siming to tremble. Sir Xing Hun, why are you doing this? Looking at Xing Hun's cold face, Great Siming sensed that something was wrong and asked. Xing Hun's cunning smile made Great Siming feel uneasy. Didn't you say that you could sacrifice yourself for the Yin Yang sect? I have a perfect escape plan now, and I'm counting on you to realize it, Great Siming. At this moment, Xing Hun grabbed Great Siming's right hand. Without waiting for Great Siming's reply, he suddenly unleashed an unimaginable force, and threw Great Siming in the direction of Dustless. Great Siming, I order you to cover my retreat. It's time for you to sacrifice yourself for the Yin Yang sect. Remember, you have to hold back Dustless for me and buy time for me to retreat. Then, under Great Siming's shocked gaze, Xing Hun turned and ran the moment he threw Great Siming. His speed was comparable to Dustless's. That bastard Xing Hun. How dare he be the guardian of the Yin Yang sect? He's a cowardly scum. Great Siming regained her senses and cursed. She did say that she would sacrifice herself for the Yin Yang sect, but she didn't say that she would sacrifice herself for Xing Hun. Xing Hun couldn't represent the Yin Yang sect. Chapter 1834. However, no matter how much Great Siming hated Xing Hun, it was useless. She was about to face the unpredictable and eccentric Dustless. If there were no accidents, she would definitely die. You should feel happy that you're dying for me. You're just one of the 5 elders, while I'm one of the 2 protectors. This is such a rare honor, you idiot. Xing Hun turned around and glanced at Great Siming. Seeing the hatred on her face, Xing Hun curled his lips disapprovingly. Great Siming was just one of the 5 great elders in the Yin Yang sect. Great Seeming was just one of them. Xing Hun did not feel that he was being too shameless. This was Great Seeming's honor. Damn you, Xing Hun, you despicable person. Seeing Xing Hun's disappearing figure, Great Seeming wanted to die. She cursed herself for being blind. At first, she even wanted to die together with Xing Hun. She was even prepared to perish together with Dustless. Who knew that Xing Hun would be so cunning as to use her as a shield against Dustless? TSK, how pitiful. Dustless stared at Great Seeming, who was full of hatred, with interest. She hated Xing Hun to death. If she could choose between the two, she would definitely choose to die with Xing Hun. In the original work, Great Seeming respected Xing Hun. After all, Xing Hun was his superior. However, she did not expect that the so-called strongest genius in the Yin-Yang sect would be so shameless. If I were you, I would go and kill that scumbag Xing Hun now. Seeing Dustless approaching, Great Seeming gave up resisting and seemed to have resigned herself to her fate. Kill him? I don't have the time to do that. Dustless shook his head and said, in fact, no matter where he escapes, his life is in my hands. It is up to me whether I kill him or not. You're talking nonsense. Great Seeming snorted coldly. Initially, he thought that Wuxia was arrogant enough. However, he had underestimated him. This fellow was completely lawless, as though everything was under his control. It was as though he was implying that killing Xing Hun was just a thought. It's up to you to believe it or not. Dustless didn't want to waste any more time. Instead, he stared at young Master Ming and said straightforwardly, you don't want to die yet, do you? Especially now, he can't wait to tear Xing Hun into pieces. So what? Great Seeming shouted coldly. Dustless was right, she hated Xing Hun to the core. Making use of the enemy at the right time is often more effective than making use of allies. Dustless reached out and grabbed Great Seeming's chin. His eyes slowly turned red, and his 3-tomo Sharingan made people shudder. What do you want to do? Great Seeming choked and clenched her fists. Looking at Dustless's evil Sharingan, she couldn't help but twitch. I'm thinking, should I torture you to death or make you my lackey? Dustless blew a breath of cold air into Great Seeming's ear, then said blandly, of course, it all depends on your performance. Hearing this, Great Seeming stared at him angrily. Dustless's words had trampled on her pride, but she didn't dare to talk back. She felt that the evil eyes were more terrifying than the wild beasts and Xing Hun's cold eyes. Even her soul was trembling. Oh yes, before we meet again, I have something to ask you. Dustless suddenly thought of something and asked, did someone sneak an attack on Xing Hun a few days ago? Great Seeming was stunned. She looked at Dustless in surprise and said in a deep voice, how did you know about this? There are only a few people in the Yin-Yang school who know about this. The mysterious expert who sneaked an attack on Xing Hun even injured him. Moreover, the technique he used was extremely strange, similar to the Yin-Yang school. Many people thought that it was Concubine Yin who did it. Idiot. Hearing this, Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. He thought to himself, Concubine Yin didn't do it. She didn't have the time to do it. If I'm not wrong, the one who did it should be Yueshin. However, Yueshin is really smart. She actually framed Concubine Yin. In this way, she can clear her name and not be suspected. When Wuxia had captured Moon Goddess alive, he had threatened her to sneak an attack on Xing Hun, so that he could trust Moon Goddess to be his subordinate. Now, it seemed that Moon Goddess had successfully fulfilled her part of the agreement, and would be one of them in the future. The one who sneaked an attack on Xing Hun is Yueshin. Looking at Great Seeming, Dustless ignored her shock and continued. Since the incident at the Mo family's mechanical city, Yueshin has been one of my people. Don't try to fool me. Great Seeming rejected him without hesitation. However, Dustless's Sharingan moved slightly, and the scene of him having a private conversation with Yueshin that day entered Great Seeming's mind in the form of an illusion. After a few minutes, Great Seeming looked at Dustless in disbelief. You can even make someone like Yueshin betray you. Great Seeming gasped. She was afraid of Dustless, but at the same time, she admired him. Regardless of what method he used to make Yueshin submit to him, Great Seeming found it unbelievable. So what's your choice? Do you want to stay on the same boat or report to hell? Looking at Great Ming quietly, Dustless asked calmly. Great Ming was in a dilemma. It would be great if she could live, but to be Dustless's spy. She was in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. If you die, then Xing. Alright, I promise you. It would have been better if Great Ming didn't mention Xing. The moment Xing was mentioned, Great Ming was furious. She gritted her teeth and agreed to Dustless's request. Hee, at least you know what's good for you. Dustless laughed secretly. He then glanced at Great Ming and said, However, although you have agreed to my condition, I still can't trust you. You have to be like Yueshan and sneak an attack on Xing and do something similar. Only then can I barely trust that you are sincere. Chapter 1835. Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Upon hearing this, Great Ming was not in a hurry to refute. Instead, she retorted angrily. She was not as powerful as the moon god, and it would be difficult for her to attack Xing to gain Dustless's trust. There are other ways, but I'm afraid you won't agree to it. Staring at Great Ming's naked body, Dustless smiled maliciously. You. Upon seeing this, Great Ming's body twitched and her face turned slightly red. She had already guessed Dustless's intention. This guy. Great Ming's face darkened. She did not expect Dustless to have such dirty thoughts. She felt that even breathing in the same space was polluted. What is your choice? This is a deal and I won't force you. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly. Alright, I'll agree to it. Driven by her desire for revenge, Great Ming gritted her teeth and agreed decisively. If she rejected, she would definitely be killed by Dustless. She had yet to take revenge on Xing, and she did not want to die yet. The next morning, the wind was gentle and the sun was shining brightly. As the sun rose from the east, the sea near the Mulberry Sea was bathed in a golden glow, as if it was plated with a layer of gold. The scenery was beautiful beyond compare. Breathing in the fresh air would make people feel refreshed and full of energy. However, at this moment, in a certain inn, the bedding was rolling and the bed creaked continuously. The creaking sound only stopped when the sun was high up in the sky. At the same time, the exhausted Dustless and the rosy-faced Great Ming crawled out of the bedding. A woman is a hero's grave. I'm so tired yesterday. Dustless was half-naked and leaning on the pillow. His body was exhausted after working for an entire night. Dustless should have returned to the Little Saint Manor last night. But Great Ming was willing to make a deal with her. Hence, both of them found an inn and slept in each other's arms. Great Ming had also turned from an outsider to one of them. This was the so-called deal. Of course, Dustless had given Great Ming other options. However, with her ability, it was impossible for her to complete them. Hence, she could only choose the most direct and quick way. All he had to do was take a nap. How convenient. Goodbye. Great Ming crawled out of the bed with a cold face. She walked unsteadily and looked very unnatural. What a stubborn woman. Dustless glanced at Great Ming and threw a strange fruit to her, and said, This is the devil's fruit, the magma fruit of the nature. After you eat it, your strength will increase and you will be able to kill Xing. That's it. Hearing this, Great Ming looked at Wu Chen suspiciously. The strange fruit in his hand looked neither fish nor fowl. You. Dustless rolled his eyes and did not want to waste his breath. He used the magma fruit's ability, function and some of its weaknesses into Great Ming's mind in the form of an illusion. It's no wonder that your strength is so shocking. Now I understand a little. After a few minutes, Great Ming, who had escaped from the illusion, looked at Dustless in shock. Her lips were quivering and at the same time, her resistance towards Dustless had disappeared. In every world, the strong were respected. Great Ming was initially against Dustless, as she felt that being Dong Huangtai's follower would have a better future. However, after being enlightened by the illusion, she understood that this handsome young man in front of her was the thickest thigh in the world. She had to cling on to him tightly. No wonder Yueshan was so obedient. Great Ming sighed. His gaze towards Dustless was filled with respect, and even a stubborn fanaticism. His respect for Dustless was far greater than Dong Huangtai. This was normal. No matter how powerful Dong Huangtai was, he would not be able to escape the decay of time. After a few years, he would also become a pile of bones. On the other hand, Dustless was different. He would live as long as the heavens. In this case, it shouldn't be a problem to kill Xing Han. Great Siming's eyes were cold as she said softly, "Why are you in such a hurry to kill him?" Dustless frowned. He could not understand Great Siming's thoughts. Since Xing Han is going to die anyway, what's wrong with killing him in the future? After squeezing him dry, we can let him experience the most painful death in the world. Isn't this more suitable and painful? You're right. Great Siming's pretty face froze. After pondering for a few seconds, she nodded in agreement. She suddenly felt that the death method Dustless mentioned was too suitable for Xing Han, who loved to show off his superiority. I'm going back to the Confucian school for the time being. My current identity in the Confucian school is called Zichen. If there's anything, you can look for me secretly. Remember to report to me every move of the Yinyang school, especially anything related to the 7 mansions of Songlong. Dustless pulled Great Siming into his arms and gave her a peck on the cheek. Under her careful care, he put on his clothes and rushed back to the Little Sage Manor through the back door. At the same time, in the Little Sage Manor of the Confucian school, a large number of heavy armored soldiers from the state of Qin had gathered. Each of them was holding a long spear and had a serious look on their faces. Zhao Gao and the 6 sword slaves had all come uninvited. This included Prime Minister Li Si, Gong Sunlinglong, and many others. Of course, there was another person that Dustless had been paying attention to. The people from the Confucian school, especially the 3 leaders, Fu Nian, Yin Lu, and Zhang Liang. Although they looked calm on the surface, there was a hint of worry in the depths of their eyes. These Qin soldiers obviously came with bad intentions. These elite soldiers with awe-inspiring murderous intent were the best way to show off their strength. Although Li Si used to be a disciple of the Confucian school, but now he's sincerely trying to teach the Confucian school a lesson. Fu Nian, Yin Lu, and Zhang Liang exchanged glances. They looked at the 6 sword slaves, Gong Sunlinglong, and the others and frowned slightly. These people were not easy to deal with. Chapter 1836. How ironic. If I remember correctly, although Li Si is a disciple of the legalism school, his teacher is the Confucian school. Moreover, the current Sun Zi is his teacher. In the past, Han Fizi was even his classmate and good friend. Now he is actually trying to make things difficult for the Confucian school. How lamentable. Dustless, who had just rushed back, happened to see this scene. He couldn't help but sigh. The saying that the world was unpredictable was not wrong at all. Although Li Si had a great relationship with the Confucian school, he now regarded the Confucian school as a thorn in his side, and wished to get rid of it. As for the reason, it was probably because of Han Fizi and the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. Let's see what's so special about you. After thinking about it, Dustless decisively went over. In any case, he was bored. Of course, Dustless's main attention was focused on an old man. This person's hair and beard were all white, and he seemed to be under pressure as he walked. However, his eyes were bright and full of spirit. Occasionally, a strange light would flash through them. Moreover, although this old man's appearance was like a candle flickering in the wind, his aura was full of vigor and vitality. This old man was Chu Nangong. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book, that Dustless valued, was also in his hands. Senior and junior brothers, why don't I see teacher? Li Si couldn't help but ask Fu Nian and the others as soon as he stepped into the beautiful Little Saint Manor. To be honest, not to mention the Prime Minister, even I, a junior, haven't met Marshal Uncle Sun for many years. Fu Nian bowed slightly and cupped his fists in apology. Is that so? It's not easy to come here. Why don't we go and greet teacher? Li Si suddenly suggested. Fu Nian, Yin Lu, and Zhang Liang looked at each other, and a strange look flashed in their eyes at the same time. As the Prime Minister, Li Si was extremely shrewd. Although he was inextricably linked to the Confucian school, as the Prime Minister, there might be other meanings behind everything he did. Moreover, as everyone knew, Li Si was jealous and cunning. He could even frame his own classmate, Han Fizi. who knew if he had any ill intentions towards Sun Zi. However, it was obviously impossible for him to refuse Li Si without any excuse, so he had no choice but to bring Li Si to pay a visit to Sun Zi. However, perhaps Li Si was born with bad luck. What happened next was similar to what happened in the original work. Sun Zi refused to meet Li Si without hesitation. At the same time, he said that he did not have a student like Li Si. Li Si's expression changed greatly on the spot, but it just so happened that he couldn't flare up. Sun Zi was his teacher, he couldn't drag Sun Zi out and beat him up, right? The ancient people deeply believed in the principle of heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. As the representative of the legalists, Li Si was no exception. He could only leave with his head full of bumps. However, Li Si was not someone to be trifled with. He immediately invited the reinforcements, the famous scholar Gongsun Linglong, to debate with the scholarly faction. He swore in his heart that he would make the scholarly faction lose all face. Furthermore, Dustless, Tianming, and Xiaoyu all participated in this debate. However, the development was the same as the original work. Although Gongsun Linglong had the appearance of a fat woman, her mouth was very sharp. Not to mention the scholarly faction's disciples, even Dustless was confused by her words. He secretly gave Gongsun Linglong a thumbs up. This person's eloquence was unparalleled in the world. She could reverse black and white, turning wrong into right. Dustless admitted that he was inferior to her. To deal with a scoundrel like Gongsun Linglong who lied through her teeth, he had to give her a taste of her own medicine. Thus, Tianming was given an important task by Zhang Liang. Within the scholarly faction, the one known as the stupidest disciple was Dustless. Of course, this didn't mean that Wuchen was the worst, but his attainments in learning were really not flattering. He didn't even know the Xiaozhuan characters of the Qin kingdom. But in other aspects such as riding and fighting, he was second to none in the top. The second to last battle was Tianming. At first, everyone didn't look favorably on Tianming, but the final result was shocking. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Tianming's little universe erupted, and he won against Gongsun Linglong. After scaring the white horse away, he brought a black horse over. This made Gongsun Linglong so angry that she wanted to swallow Tianming alive. Because of Tianming, the scholarly faction managed to turn the tables with great difficulty. Trash! Li Si, who was slapped in the face again, didn't move on the surface. However, he was furious in his heart. First, he was slapped in the face by Sun Zi. Then he was slapped in the face by Tianming. He had lost all face as a minister. Brothers, my useless subordinates have heard that the scholarly faction's attainments in swordsmanship are shocking. This time, they have come to seek advice from the scholarly faction. Pointing at the 6 sword slaves beside Zhao Gao, Li Si finally used his trump card. This doesn't seem appropriate. Without even thinking, the head of the scholarly faction, Fu Nian, directly refused. He had heard of the 6 sword slaves before. They were extremely powerful. Even a first-rate expert like Gunia wouldn't be able to handle them, let alone these useless disciples of the scholarly faction. However, although Fu Nian didn't think it was appropriate, there were some people who wanted to slap Li Si in the face today. Zichen, this time, you will be the one to show them the swordsmanship of the scholarly faction. The person who spoke was Zhang Liang, and the Zichen he spoke of was Dustless. This guy is really trying to make Li Si look bad. Is he deliberately taking revenge on Li Si for tricking Han Fei? Sighing, Dustless finally stood up. After all, he was now a disciple of the scholarly faction. Moreover, it didn't seem like a bad idea to take the opportunity to get close to Chu Nangong. Chapter 1837. Zichen. After everyone heard this address, their eyebrows all straightened at the same time. Their gazes all turned towards the handsome young man who stood up. Zifeng, you're messing around. Fu Nian glared fiercely at Zhang Liang. Although in his eyes, Zichen's attainments in martial arts were quite deep, he was still not a match for the 6 sword slaves. After all, the other party was a famous swordsman. Every one of them was a swordsman with decent strength before they joined the Luo Net. After joining the Luo Net, and going through a series of hellish training, every one of them became a killing machine. On the other hand, Zichen, The Confucians were in despair. In their view, Zichen was just a 17 or 18-year-old boy. How could he be a match for the 6 sword slaves? This was a classic act of courting death. But everyone looked at the unfathomable smile on Zhang Liang's face and was puzzled. Good, not bad. You're young, but your courage is commendable. Seeing the imposing Zichen, Li Si's eyes lit up. Afraid that the Confucians would go back on their word, he hurriedly said, "However, the 6 sword slaves can't bully you with numbers. You can choose one of them as your opponent." 1 against 1 was despicable enough, and would be suspected of bullying the weak. If all the 6 sword slaves attacked together, Li Si was sure that he would be mocked by the world. If it's just a simple competition, then it's really too boring. At this moment, Zichen, dustless, suddenly said to Li Si with a smile, "Lord Minister, why don't we add a little variety?" "Oh, add a little variety? Sounds interesting. Let's hear it." Li Si was immediately interested and said, "If it's possible, I'll agree to it." "Lord Minister, you're from the school of legalism, and legalism advocates rewarding those who do well and punishing those who do wrong. The final winner should be rewarded. This shouldn't be too much, right?" Dustless looked at Chu Nangong and said meaningfully, "This makes sense." Everyone looked at each other and thought for a moment before nodding slightly. Since it was a competition, it was normal to have some rewards. "What kind of reward does everyone think is suitable?" Li Si asked without hesitation. If it was just pure gold, it would be too vulgar, especially for scholars like the Confucians. In their eyes, money was just a worldly possession. Moreover, with money as a competition, they might think that Li Si was deliberately insulting the Confucians. "Lord Prime Minister, there is no need to worry. Someone has already prepared the reward for Lord Prime Minister." Dustless spoke again. He looked at Chu Nangong with a smile and said, "I heard that Nangong has a peerless book called the Yellowstone Heaven Book. Since Nangong is a hanger-on of the Prime Minister, why don't you use it as a reward?" As soon as his voice trailed off, everyone's expression changed drastically. They all stared at Chu Nangong in shock. "Nangong, I didn't expect you to have such a treasure." Hearing this, Li Si's face immediately turned ugly. His gaze was somewhat gloomy as he looked at Chu Nangong. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book had already been spread to the point that it was almost divine. In Li Si's opinion, such a good thing should be given to him by Chu Nangong. Who would have thought that this old man would hide it? The Yellow Emperor Xianyuan was one of the ancestors of China, and the first ancestor of the humanities. He was known as the ancestor of China along with the Yan Emperor, who was born on the shore of the Jiangshui River. He was the leader of the tribal alliance in ancient China. The first owner of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. The Yellow Emperor Xianyuan obtained the magical power by comprehending the secrets of this Yellowstone Heavenly Book and defeated Qiyu. Jiang Zia assisted King Wu of Zhou in destroying the Shang dynasty. Because of his contributions, he was awarded the title of Qi and became the ancestor of the Qi kingdom in the Zhou dynasty. He was an outstanding statesman, strategist in the history of China. The second owner of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. His attainment of the Tao in Mount Qi was related to this Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Hearing this, Chu Nangong panicked. Finally, he could no longer stay out of it like before. He glared fiercely at Dustless and hurriedly explained, "Lord Prime Minister, you may not know this, but I recently obtained this book. I wanted to give it to you in a few days, but who would have thought that I would participate in the Confucian school? I have a bad memory and forgot." Forgot? How could he forget such an important thing? Everyone disagreed with this ridiculous excuse. "Then Nangong, what are your plans?" Li Si looked at Chu Nangong meaningfully and dragged his voice as he asked meaningfully, "Of course, I'm willing to give it to you with both hands. No, I'm willing to give it to you as the winner." Chu Nangong quickly changed his words. If he gave it to Li Si directly, it would be hard to avoid being criticized. It was better to give it to him as the winner of the competition. After all, the person who would get the Yellowstone Heavenly Book in the end would be Li Si. Chu Nangong did not think that Dustless could defeat the 6 sword slaves. Such a peerless book is going to fall into Li Si's hands. Everyone sighed in their hearts. They were afraid that Li Si would have to give it to Ing Zheng again. No one could get it. Idiots, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book is mine. You mortals want to take it for yourselves. You overestimate yourselves. Dustless sneered in his heart when he saw this. What is this guy's intention? Zhang Liang's eyes stared at Dustless. His view was very different from others. He believed that the final winner would be Dustless. Within the Confucian school, only Zhang Liang knew the identity of Dustless. Not to mention that he was just one of the 6 sword slaves. Even if all of them besieged Dustless, Zhang Liang believed that the winner would be Dustless. However, before this, when Dustless entered the Confucian school, he deliberately dressed up and changed his appearance. No one knew that this Zichen in front of them was the wanted Dustless. Chapter 1838. This old thing. How dare he hide such an important thing from me? Li Si's expression was calm on the surface, but in his heart, endless ripples were set off. Li Si had been slapped in the face by the Confucian school, and the Prime Minister's stomach was big enough to support a boat. However, even his own people had lied to him. A Confucian school disciple knew that Chu Nangong had the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, but Li Si, as the Prime Minister, had no idea. Especially since Chu Nangong was his follower, Li Si was furious. I'll deal with you when we get back. Li Si looked away from Chu Nangong's head and finally looked at Zhao Gao's head. Zhao Gao, who do you think is more suitable to fight? Remember, this is a sword debate. Don't overdo it. Li Si said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Zhao Gao stood up respectfully. He cupped his fist and reported to Li Si. Prime Minister, since you said don't overdo it, Wanchen will be fine. As soon as he said that, a man covered in yin qi stepped forward. He looked very evil. He wore a mask with a huge spider embedded in it. It was impossible to tell what he looked like. However, anyone could tell that this guy was not a good person. He was definitely not a good person. Not bad. Seeing this, Li Si nodded with satisfaction. An imperceptible smile appeared on his face. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book is mine. Li Si thought so. Of course, Dustless thought so too. Clang, clang, clang. There was a flash of cold light in the void. Luanshan's sword was unsheathed. He pointed at Dustless's throat and said coldly, "Pretty boy, draw your sword. Don't waste my time." This guy. Hearing Luanshan's arrogant tone, everyone was unhappy. This Luanshan of the 6 sword slaves was already suspected of bullying the weak. Now he was shamelessly looking down on others. He was really shameless. On the other hand, Zhao Gao and Li Si did not care. They only cared about the result. It's just a dog. Dustless lifted his lips and mumbled something. Although it was as soft as a mosquito, everyone heard him clearly. That was especially true of Luanshan, who was the closest to Dustless. His eyes looked cold. Everyone else heard him clearly. Chaos God was no exception. Brat, fists and feet are silent. You better be careful. Dustless's words made Chaos God really angry. If Li Si and the others had said something like that, it would have been fine. After all, that was someone else's identity. But Dustless, to put it nicely, he was just a Confucian student, yet he dared to look down on him. He simply didn't know how to write the word death. Even though Li Si had told him not to overdo it, bumps were inevitable. It was normal for him to accidentally kill Dustless. In the end, he just needed to do a clean job. Plus, Chaos God had made up his mind. Even if he could not kill Dustless, he was going to cripple him. He had brought this upon himself. What is he planning to do with the Yellowstone Heaven Book? Zhang Liang had been thinking hard. Even though the battle had not started yet, he already had an idea of the result of this competition. Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves of the Luo net, was going to lose. Is he going to give it to someone else? Zhang Liang's eyes shone brightly. Dustless did not even know how to read, let alone a book like the Yellowstone Heaven Book. Other than giving it to someone else to study, Zhang Liang could not think of any other reason. Draw the sword? I don't have a sword. How can I draw it? Why don't we fight with our bare hands? Dustless shrugged and said helplessly, taking out the heaven-gathering cloud sword in front of everyone would be too shocking. Take it. It's just a normal competition. No need to be nervous. Just do your best. At that moment, an unexpected person gave his own sword to Dustless. This is Big Brother's Tai? Everyone was in disbelief as they stared at the seemingly crude great sword. Everyone's breathing became heavier, especially Zhang Liang and Yen Lu. They were all dumbfounded as they stared at Fu Nian, who had a resolute face. It seems like Big Brother wants Zichen to use Tai. He wants the quality of the sword to be better than Chaos God's. But the second in command of the Confucian school of thought, Yen Lu, shook his head. The most important thing about swordsmanship was the person using the sword. Take Gunia for example. In the original novel, even if his abyss rainbow was broken, he could still fight against an expert like Xing Hun with a wooden sword. Swords are not suitable for me. Dustless glanced at Tai, which Zimu had given him. He saw Zimu looking at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. He immediately rejected it. Swords were elegant objects. They were suitable for gentlemen like Fu Nian and Zhang Liang. However, they were not suitable for Dustless. Compared to swords, Dustless preferred to use simple and rough knives. Kid, if you want to fight me with your bare hands, I don't mind. Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves, said coldly. His sharp longsword was already at Dustless's throat. It seemed like he had no intention of throwing away his sword. So shameless. Seeing this, the Confucian school of thought cursed in their hearts. The 6 sword slaves were terrifying existences in the Jianghu. It was already shameless enough to fight against a Confucian school of thought. Now they wanted to use their swords to fight against Dustless, who was barehanded. Enough. Even Li Si could not stand it anymore. Chaos God was too shameless. This kid is the one. We can't change him. Li Si looked at Dustless with burning eyes. If Ruguang was replaced by Zhang Liang or Fu Nian, it was uncertain who would win in a 1v1 situation. If Chaos God lost, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book would disappear. Chapter 1839. There was no doubt that even a sword saint like Gunia, or an expert with the number 1 sword in the world, would not be able to gain an advantage against the 6 of them. But if it was a one-on-one fight, what were the chances of victory? Especially against experts like Yen Lu, and Zhang Liang, Li Si did not understand. Why not? It's enough to take care of a Confucian disciple. Li Si frowned as he looked at Dustless and impatiently said, "Finish this quickly. I still have many trivial matters to attend to. I don't have time to waste. Just pick up some trash to deal with him. If we delay, things might change." Dustless was too lazy to waste words. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a ripple appeared in his palm, and a slender katana emerged from thin air. What kind of ability is this? Everyone noticed Dustless's abnormality and they all looked surprised. Everyone was shocked by this move. The unknown tachi that could cut iron like mud was shining with cold light, and was overflowing with an ominous murderous aura. Holding the tachi in his hand, Wuchen seemed to have found his original soul in an instant. His whole body radiated a unique temperament. Everyone felt a trace of indescribable oppression. There was a faint evil smile at the corner of his mouth. Everyone frowned slightly when they saw Wu Chen's abnormality. What's wrong with this kid? Li Si could no longer maintain his calm expression. For some reason, when he saw Dustless's faint smile, he felt like an idiot who had been played by a brat. At this moment, Li Si had an ominous premonition that a great disaster was about to befall him. Should I switch people out at the last minute? Li Si hesitated, and a rare cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He had never had such a headache before, even when he had encountered a difficult national matter. But who can I switch out? Li Si shook his head when he saw the cold faces of the 6 sword slaves. He would never do something as shameless as a 6v1. If it were Fu Nian and the others, it would be fine, but to deal with a Confucian disciple, Li Si estimated that he would be labeled as shameless by the world in the future. Should I use her? Retracting his gaze from the 6 sword slaves, Li Si looked at the beautiful girl on his right. The girl had a head of long and thin purple hair. Her face was covered by a veil, so it was impossible to tell what she looked like. The girl's eyes were extremely tranquil and serene, unmoving. Her gem-like eyes were as calm as an ancient well, giving people the feeling that even if the sky were to collapse, it would have nothing to do with her. This person was young Arbiter Ming of the school of Yin Yang. It's even more inappropriate to expect her to fight. At the same time, Li Si retracted his gaze from young Master Ming. He was a shrewd man. Although the Yin Yang school and the Qin state were allies, they were still two different people. The importance of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was self-evident. Who knew if the school of Yin Yang would be moved? It was rumored that after comprehending the Heavenly Book, one would obtain inconceivable power. Wasn't this what the school of Yin Yang pursued? Why does he look so familiar? Although Xiaoxi Ming looked emotionless on the surface, a faint ripple had appeared in her heart. She kept staring at Dustless from the corner of her eyes. Although Dustless had disguised himself, Xiaoxi Ming couldn't help but think of a wanted person, Dustless. No matter how a person disguised himself or changed his appearance, his aura could never be changed. I remember that Xing Hun was the one who came to find trouble with the school of Yin Yang. I didn't expect it to be her this time. Dustless also stole a few glances at Xiaoxi Ming from the corner of his eyes. He couldn't help but sigh. Even without Xing Hun, the Yin Yang school still sent young Master Ming. Of course, the main reason was Dustless. Xing Hun was severely injured by him last time. Even if he was lucky and didn't die, he probably had one foot in the door of hell and was still recuperating. Therefore, it was young Master Ming's turn to find trouble with the school of Yin Yang. But this girl is really beautiful at such a young age. Dustless muttered to himself. The veil covering young Master Ming's face was as good as non-existent to Dustless. He could see her beautiful face with one glance. Kid, go and die. Just as Dustless stole glances at young Master Ming, Wanshan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. It was just a fight, but Dustless's hesitation had already ignited the flames in his heart. Experts usually wouldn't get angry easily, but once they did, the consequences would be extremely severe. Wanshan was one such example. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp sword light went straight for Dustless's eyes. It was extremely tricky. Be careful. He's too despicable. The school of Yin Yang reminded loudly, cursing Wanshan for being shameless and despicable. He launched a sneak attack without saying anything. This guy's shamelessness wasn't any worse than Li Si's. Despicable. Hearing this, Zhao Gao's face was filled with mockery. He glanced at the school of Yin Yang and snorted disdainfully. These people were destined to be gentlemen. That was why they would be wiped out in the end. Too slow. Dustless's unbelievably calm tone popped out of his mouth. Then the tachi in his hand swept out, and a weak sword attack emerged. This scene was too fast. It happened in the blink of an eye. Only the top experts could see it. Wanshan suddenly felt a piercing pain on his cheek. It was as if someone had torn it apart. It was extremely painful. Then drops of blood kept dripping down. How boring. Ignoring everyone's shocked eyes, Dustless said. It's not too late to admit defeat after a few rounds. Who would have thought that you would lose everything in an instant? Chapter 1840. He lost just like that. Seeing this, Li Si's eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. The dignified prime minister looked like a country bumpkin at this moment. He had completely lost his image. Of course, it was not just Li Si. Everyone's expression was as exaggerated as his. The only people who remained calm were Zhang Liang, Tianming, and Xiaoyu, who knew Dustless's identity. Impossible, he lost. Zhao Gao saw the scary wound on Chaos God's face. He could not believe what he was seeing. He screamed, "This is the truth." Dustless glanced at him in boredom. He did not have a good impression of this eunuch. Prime Minister, should you announce the outcome now? Staring at Li Si, who was in a daze and seemed to have lost his soul, Wuchen deliberately dragged his voice. Hearing this, the corners of Li Si's mouth twitched twice. Thinking about how the cooked duck had flown away, he felt especially depressed in his heart. If it was an ordinary thing, then so be it. With Li Si's status, he wouldn't care. But the importance of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was not inferior to a great secret like the Azure Dragon's 7 mansions in Li Si's heart. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was a unique book. Everyone who was fated with it would have extraordinary achievements in the end. The Yellow Emperor Xianyuan and Jiang Taigong were the same. Li Si wanted to have it even in his dreams. However, sadly, Luanshan, who he trusted, was killed by the enemy in one strike. Li Si's heart was suddenly filled with despair. He glared at Zhao Gao with fire in his eyes. It was all his fault for choosing Luanshan to fight Dustless. It's none of my business. Seeing this, Zhao Gao wanted to cry but had no tears. He did not expect Dustless to be so abnormal. Humph, kid, you broke the rules. This round does not count. It should be annulled. At this moment, Zhao Gao suddenly had an idea and threatened. Did you forget what the Prime Minister said? You used a sword to injure someone. This is a serious crime. That's right. Hearing this, Li Si took the opportunity to put on airs and shouted. Why did you deliberately injure someone? How shameless. Seeing this, all the Confucian disciples glared angrily, including Fu Nian and Zhang Liang. Even Yen Lu, who rarely got angry, frowned. Although it's said to stop when it's appropriate, bumps and bruises are unavoidable. He was the one who said that. Dustless pointed at Luanshan, who had a bloody scar on his cheek, and said lazily, also he released a murderous aura towards me before. Why didn't the magistrate say that he broke the rules? Zhao Gao was the prefectural magistrate of Zhongche Prefecture. Hearing that, Zhao Gao was speechless. He looked at Luanshan and cursed. Useless piece of trash. This is what you get for looking down on others. Damn it. Chaos God was embarrassed and angry. He touched the wound on his face. Just as he was about to raise his sword to fight, Dustless said something that made him put down his hand. You've already lost. If you point your sword at me again, I'll take it as an act of seeking death. Rice bucket, back off. Li Si glared at Luanshan with his cold eyes. His expression changed rapidly, and finally he acted shamelessly. Sigh, I'm old and my memory is not good. I forgot to say before that this competition is a best of 3. All the rules are set by you. What else is there to compete? Fu Nian, who couldn't bear it anymore, snorted and said, since that's the case, our Confucian school admits defeat. 2 out of 3 matches it is. Do as you please. Dustless immediately expressed a different opinion, and refuted Fu Nian's opinion. He had finally found an excuse to snatch the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. How could he give up just because of Fu Nian's words? Moreover, what could a best of 3 change? He would still lose. Since it's a best of 3, then the next round. An unexpected beautiful figure came out to disturb the situation. Her elegant purple hair was like a fairy descending from the sky. Her light voice caused everyone to be startled, and they were unable to extricate themselves from her intoxication. It's you. Dustless frowned. He helplessly found that the person who challenged him was young Master Ming of the School of Yinyang. Sure enough, the School of Yinyang also wants the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Li Si's face turned ugly. The School of Yinyang had a high position in Ing Zheng's heart. Once the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was taken away by the School of Yinyang, it was almost impossible to make them spit it out. We were the ones who lost this competition, so we'll win it back. The rest of the slaves of the 6 swords suggested to Zhao Gao. Unexpectedly, Zhao Gao just asked them to get lost. You're just a few pieces of trash. How can you be brave when you're just a general of a defeated army? Shut up. In the end, this matter had nothing to do with Zhao Gao. However, the slaves of the 6 swords had lost and caused Li Si to hold a grudge against him. It was especially sad and felt like a fish in the moat. Sending a little girl to fight me? How can I do that? Dustless deliberately scratched his head and put on an embarrassed look. You feel embarrassed? That's fine. Since you don't have the heart to fight, then you should take the initiative to quit and give the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to me. It was rare for young Master Ming, who was usually quiet, to be talkative. What a joke. How can I give this thing away so easily? Hearing this, Dustless scolded in his heart and rolled his eyes. If it was an ordinary thing, he wouldn't mind giving it away. However, he was determined to get the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and the 7 constellations of the Azure Dragon. If you don't want to, then cut the crap and do it quickly. The steam in Great Master Ming's body was rolling. With a light tap of her hand, a genuine energy vortex appeared. Then, countless green leaves were under her control, and were easily sucked into the vortex in her palm. Then, under everyone's surprised gaze, a long whip made entirely of green leaves was formed in an instant. Chapter 1841. Young Arbiter Ming looks like she's only in her teens. She's probably not much older than Xing Han. Dustless nodded in admiration. He looked at Li Si and asked, Minister, this is the last time, right? There won't be a best-of-5 rule again, right? Li Si was embarrassed by Dustless's question. To be honest, he had lost all his face as a minister by acting shamelessly in front of a Confucian disciple. Brat, how dare you? Zhao Gao's eyes turned cold. He had felt that Dustless was strange since the beginning. He didn't seem like a simple Confucian disciple. The Confucian school pursued the path of a gentleman. They usually convinced people with reason, and wouldn't bully people with power. Therefore, the swordsmanship used by the Confucian school was filled with righteousness. However, the moment Wuxia held the blade, his temperament changed drastically. The overbearing aura of pointing the sword at the sky made everyone feel small and insignificant. This kind of overbearing swordsmanship was definitely not from the Confucian school. This Zichen is indeed a little strange. Zhao Gao wasn't the only one who saw the problem. The head of the Confucian school, Fu Nian, also saw the abnormality. Most of the Confucian school only knew how to use swords. Sabers were a relatively crude weapon. It didn't match the elegance of the Confucian school, and conflicted with the teachings of the Confucian school. All in all, the Confucian school basically used swords. However, in Dustless's eyes, sabers and swords were no different. A weapon that could kill was the best. This is the last time. If you win, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book will be yours, Li Si said expressionlessly. However, he squinted his eyes and looked at Dustless. Brat, how dare you trick me? Just wait and see. Li Si knew that he had been tricked. The culprit was this seemingly harmless young man in front of him. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as Li Si finished speaking, young Arbiter Ming launched a fatal attack. The green whip contained an unimaginable sharpness and swept towards Dustless's face. So weak. Dustless blinked his eyes and stared at the long whip coming from the left. He raised the tachi in his hand and slashed it down. Poochie. The seemingly extraordinary green leaf whip was exceptionally fragile under the overwhelming power, and was brutally cut apart by Dustless. Such strength. Xiao Ximing's nose slightly wrinkled. Dustless could clearly see the girl's surprise even with the veil covering her face. Great Ximing and Moon God are already my people. Let alone you. Dustless laughed in his heart. Moon God's position was higher than Great Ximing's, but she was still one of his people, let alone young Ximing in front of him. I'll just make your Yinyang school my own people and turn Dong Huangtai into a general without an army. Dustless chuckled in his heart. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. It was as if he could already see Dong Huangtai's pitiful look when he was betrayed after knowing the truth. Humph. Seeing Dustless's silly smile, Xiao Ximing's eyes flashed dangerously. How dare he think of other things while fighting with her? Wasn't this looking down on her? Shoo shoo shoo. Xiao Ximing waved her hand lightly. True qi gushed out, and a weak whirlpool quietly appeared on her palm again. Buzz buzz buzz. The leaves that were cut off by Dustless floated up again. Following Xiao Ximing's will, they all flew towards Dustless at lightning speed. Shoo shoo shoo. The dense green leaves emitted a dangerous sharpness, refracting a gloomy cold light. Every green leaf was like a blade. Poochie, poochie, poochie. In the blink of an eye, the floating green leaf pierced through Dustless's body at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, an extremely bloody scene unfolded. They pierced through Dustless's chest, and one could even see the white bones inside. Puke 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 puke. Having never seen such a bloody scene, the disciples of the school of Moism started to vomit. You killed someone. Seeing this, Fu Nian was furious. Seeing Dustless's miserable face, his anger exploded. He knew that he had been patient enough, but he didn't expect the school of Yinyang to be so bold. Killing a Confucian disciple in front of the Confucian school of thought. Wasn't this slapping the Confucian school of thought's face? Little Saint Zhuang Wuxin participated in the Jianghu feud, But you are too presumptuous. Fu Nian's cold gaze swept across young Judge Ming. The Taya sword in Fu Nian's hand had already been unsheathed, and a fatal pressure spread out. Now that the Confucian disciple was killed, he would be laughed at if he, the school of thought, continued to remain silent. However, Xiao Ming remained unmoved. Seeing Wu Chen's body, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. Her mouth moved slightly. Just as Xiao Ming was about to open her mouth, her beautiful eyes suddenly shrank. Game over. At this moment, a straight tachi was pressed against Xiao Ming's throat. Aren't you dead? Li Si couldn't help but ask in surprise. When he saw Dustless's miserable state, he also felt nauseous. However, when Li Si looked at Dustless's body again, it had already turned into a piece of destroyed wood. Dead. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. To put it bluntly, it was just a random clone technique, and it wasn't Dustless's real body. Lord Xiangguo is right, but the dead me is just a piece of wood. You. Looking down at the tachi on her throat, Xiao Ming clenched her fists tightly, looking rather unwilling. There's always someone better. Although your school of Yinyang isn't bad, it's not invincible. Especially you. You've chosen the wrong opponent. Admit defeat. Chapter 1842. It wasn't that Dustless was toying with young Master Ming. Even if he was, it couldn't be helped. Young Master Ming's strength couldn't pique Dustless's interest. He could only play with her casually. This technique is somewhat similar to Shu Mountain's one-leaf vision. Young Master Ming gritted her teeth and pouted. She seemed to be extremely dissatisfied. To a certain extent, it is indeed similar. However, one-leaf vision is an illusion to confuse the enemy. Mine is just a simple doppelganger technique. It isn't used to confuse the enemy. There is a fundamental difference. Dustless stared at young Master Ming's veiled face and explained. Lord Minister, you can announce the final result. Looking at Li Si, Dustless said plainly. Although it's best of 3, I've already won 2 rounds. There's no need to continue. Zhao Gao and the others, as well as Li Si, looked at the handsome young man in a daze. They were a little absent-minded. When they were Dustless's age, they only knew how to play around all day. This competition is over. The Confucian disciple, Zichen, wins. Li Si announced loudly. When these words fell, everyone was a little stunned. Young Master Ming of the Yinyang school and Chaos God of the 6 sword slaves had lost so easily. It was somewhat difficult for everyone to accept. After all, their opponent was just a Confucian disciple. Moreover, he was the type that ranked last. This is good. It's better than falling into the hands of the Yinyang school. Everything was already done. Li Si also felt relieved. If the Yellowstone Heavenly Book fell into the hands of the Yinyang school, they would definitely not be able to take it back. However, Dustless, kid, I'll deal with you when I have time. I'll let you live for a while longer. Li Si withdrew his cold gaze and chatted with Fu Nian for a while before leaving. Before leaving, he didn't forget to look at Dustless a few more times. It was as if he wanted to engrave that face in his heart forever. I won't lose to you next time, young Master Ming said as she brushed past Dustless. She then turned around and looked at Dustless suspiciously. From the first moment she saw him, she felt that this guy looked familiar. Hee hee. Dustless chuckled nonchalantly. Actually, I want to lose a few times as well. But after so many years, I've always been winning. Life is really as lonely as snow. Just you wait. Hearing this, Xiao Ming was choked by Dustless's words and almost couldn't help but slap him. Dustless's arrogant expression was really annoying. It's a given that you can't recognize me, young Master Ming. Dustless's entire body was now disguised, and he had even grown taller. There was a big difference between him and the old Dustless, so it was normal that young Arbiter Ming didn't recognize him. Oh right. Dustless turned into a gust of wind and walked in front of Chu Nangong. If it's not convenient for Nangong to send the Yellowstone Heavenly Book over, I'll take the initiative to go to your residence and get it. Although this old man is old, I don't need you to run errands for me. I can do it myself. Chu Nangong snorted and refused. His heart was bleeding. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was a peerless treasure. He hadn't even gotten to use it yet, and now he had to change owners. It was as if a large piece of his flesh was cut off by Dustless. It was very uncomfortable. What gave Chu Nangong the most headache was that he had offended Li Si because of this incident. This brat is going to kill me. Looking at Dustless, Chu Nangong was furious. Everyone knew about Li Si's ruthlessness. This brat could even kill his own schoolmate and good friend, let alone others. Take care. At the entrance of the Sage Manor, a group of people watched Li Si's group leave. Zichen, come over here. Fu Nian looked at Dustless seriously and asked, do you know that your life was hanging by a thread today? If it weren't for the Confucian family and the unsuitable location, perhaps Li Si would have ordered the 6 sword slaves of the net to kill you. It's a pity that they didn't take action in the end. Dustless shrugged and said indifferently, moreover, didn't we turn the danger into safety in the end? When facing the enemy, we have to press forward and not compromise. Retreating won't lead to a boundless sea and sky. It will only lead to an even more violent storm. Seeing this, Fu Nian also had a headache. He had also heard of this Zichen. He was famous for his wild nature, and was even weirder than Ziming. At the very least, Tianming knew a few words. On the other hand, Dustless didn't know a single word, but he had a lot of principles. Sometimes he even made Fu Nian speechless. In fact, Dustless couldn't be blamed for being illiterate. If a modern person was called to ancient times, 99% of them wouldn't be able to recognize the words of this era. Senior brother, no matter what, the Confucian family's face was preserved. This is Zichen's credit. Compared to the meticulous Fu Nian, Yanlu was much gentler. He didn't think that Dustless was wrong. Instead, he felt that he had gone overboard and saved the face of the Confucian family. Second senior brother's words make sense. Zhang Liang also took the opportunity to interrupt. You still dare to talk about credit? What kind of behavior is it to fight Li Si and the net head-on? It's simply setting fire to yourself. Don't forget Li Si's identity, the Prime Minister of the Empire. The people don't fight with the officials. If we continue to fight blindly, we will definitely suffer losses. Han Fei is the outcome. Do you want to push the little Sage Manor into a place of no return? Fu Nian stared at Yanlu and Zhongliang's face, rolled his eyes, and shouted angrily, you guys can quarrel slowly. Hearing that Fu Nian and the other two were educating each other, Dustless tactfully left. This was an internal matter of the Confucian family. There was no need for him to meddle in other people's business. He just needed to wait for Chu Nangong to send the Yellowstone Heavenly Book over. Chapter 1843. Li Si and the rest left in a hurry and came back in a hurry. Li Si, who had come to pick a fight today, had lost all his face. After being slapped in the face a few times, he might not be able to maintain his dignity as the Prime Minister. It was inevitable that he would become a laughing stock. At this moment, Xing Han, who had been severely injured by Dustless, was slowly waking up. Lord Xing Han, this is the corpse god Kersku? Great Si Ming stared at the worm in Xing Han's hand and asked in surprise. However, there was a cold glint in his eyes. Now that Great Si Ming was one of Dustless's men, he had to report something as vicious as the corpse god Kersku to Dustless. That's right, Xing Han nodded grimly and said through gritted teeth. I used this to deal with Dustless. That guy is too strong and unreliable. I can only use the corpse god Kersku to deal with him. If he can't use his genuine chi, he will definitely die. When he mentioned Dustless, Xing Han's bandaged wound started to hurt intensely again. Due to Dustless, he had narrowly escaped death previously. However, he was quite lucky. He did not die completely, and managed to reach the Yin-Yang sect's stronghold in Shanghai in time. After a series of treatments, he was slowly recovering. As for you, Xing Han stared at Great Si Ming meaningfully and said, I didn't expect you to escape from Dustless. I find it unbelievable. I also find it unbelievable that I have become one of Dustless's men and obtained such extraordinary strength. This is all thanks to you, Xing Han. In the end, I even have to thank you. Great Si Ming sneered in his heart and hated Xing Han to death. However, he maintained his composure and said, That guy is very lecherous. I managed to escape when he was careless. Is that so? Hearing this, Xing Hun glanced at Great Siming meaningfully. Soon after, he said in a sinister voice, "Then is it all right for me to check the inside of your mind? This will prove your innocence." Having said that, Xing Hun stared at Great Siming viciously. However, Great Siming was no longer the same as before. He pretended to be flustered, but his heart was as calm as a mountain as he calmly thought of a solution. It was impossible for him to search Xing Hun's memories. Is it appropriate to kill him or not? Great Siming hesitated. Dustless's order was to squeeze Xing Hun dry. If he killed Xing Hun now, he would be going against Dustless's order. This damned astral soul is indeed not a good thing. Great Siming was in a bad mood. If it wasn't for Dustless's previous orders, he would have slapped this scum to death. Putting aside the fact that Xing Hun had thrown him down as a meat shield, he was even afraid that he would betray the Yinyang school, and wanted to read her mind. Great Siming hated Xing Hun to the core. Lord Xing Hun. At that moment, an ethereal voice came. Han Sen turned his head and saw that it was Moon God, who had walked over safely. Oh, so it's Lord Moon God. Xing Hun's sinister eyes were filled with surprise. He didn't expect Moon God to take the initiative to look for him. The two of them had always been harmonious on the surface, but were actually at odds with each other. There had been many open and secret fights between them. However, with Dong Huangtai suppressing them, it wouldn't be a big problem for them. Great Siming is the Fire Division Elder of the Five Spirits Mystic Sameness. You don't have the right to read her mind. Moon God stood on Great Siming's side, which was rare. I think Lord Donghuang won't agree to this either. Hearing this, Xing Hun's expression froze, and his cold gaze gradually softened. He smiled and said, "Moon Goddess, please don't think that I'm so cold and heartless. She's one of us. I won't use my mind-reading technique on her. I was just joking with Great Siming." Who would believe you? Great Siming snorted in his heart and scoffed at Xing Hun's words. At the same time, he was getting more and more dissatisfied with the school of Yinyang, and decided to side with Dustless. He already had that kind of relationship with Dustless, and they couldn't be separated. Now that Xing Hun was so cold, Great Siming had lost all hope in the school of Yinyang. He would rather follow Dustless. Just the temptation of the devil fruit was enough to make him unable to resist, let alone the school of Yinyang being so heartless. I'm going to change my dressing. Goodbye. His wound started to hurt. Xing Hun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Moon God. Now that he was in such a sorry state, he would definitely lose if he bickered with Moon God. I didn't expect you to be that guy's man. The moon deity stared at Great Siming. Her eyes were filled with emotions and her mind was in a mess. The school of Yinyang had been ruined by Wuxia. Dustless had secretly informed Moon God, and requested her to work with Great Siming. Anyway, everything is too complicated. We can only blame that guy for being too powerful and we can't defeat him. Great Siming said with a helpless expression. He was deeply afraid of Dustless's terrifying strength. In the face of absolute strength, one had to obey even if he didn't want to. Otherwise, he would only be digging his own grave. That's right. Moon God nodded gently and said in a deep voice. Dustless once asked me to get close to Yun Zhongjuan secretly and see if he could refine the elixir of immortality. Elixir of immortality? I find it unbelievable. Great Siming wasn't surprised. It was normal for everyone to want to live forever. Just now, I heard an interesting plan from His Excellency East Emperor. It was a secret plan on how to deal with our new leader, Dustless. The Moon God's words were shocking, and there was a hint of worry in her voice. Chapter 1844. Since when did Great Siming and the Moon Goddess get so close? Xing Hun walked alone in the pavilion with a suspicious look on his face. To be honest, he was shocked that the Moon Goddess suddenly stood on Great Siming's side. He was even caught off guard. To a certain extent, Xing Hun had always treated Great Siming as one of his men, but now? Forget it, it's best to find a chance to get rid of Great Siming. Xing Hun's eyes were cold. No matter what, he would never trust Great Siming again. Although Great Siming was respectful to him on the surface, Xing Han was sure that Great Siming hated him to the core. This was normal. Anyone would be filled with hatred if they were betrayed by their own people. Moreover, Great Siming suddenly stood on the side of the moon goddess, which explained everything. However, right at this moment, an unexpected figure suddenly appeared before Xing Han's eyes. After seeing that beautiful figure, a rather perfect plan immediately surfaced in Xing Han's mind. After thinking for a while, Xing Han felt that it was feasible and decisively chased after her. Young Siming, you don't look too good. Xing Han suddenly blocked young Siming's path. Although the latter was covered by a veil, Xing Han could still see her ugly face clearly. Lord Xing Han. Young Siming responded softly and did not say anything else. As for the reason, she did not mention it either. Could it be that you failed to cause trouble at the Sage Manor? The quick-witted Xing Han guessed secretly with a strange expression. However, when he thought of his plan, he could not be bothered to ask further. The Sage Manor was just a small problem. Now that Dustless had become his sore point, he had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be traumatized. I thought of a perfect plan to get rid of Dustless. If what Great Siming said was true, then we can definitely take Dustless's head. Xing Han said excitedly. What plan? Young Siming was also interested and asked curiously. To the Confucian school of Yinyang, their strongest enemy was not the Confucian school, school of Mo, or Taoist school. It was just one person, Dustless. However, young Master Ming quickly sensed that something was amiss. She saw Xing Han staring at her with a fervent expression. A strange sense of unease spread through her. I heard from Great Siming that Dustless is a pervert. Therefore, young Siming, you will be in charge of seducing that guy. Once you find a suitable opportunity, kill that brat for me. Xing Han revealed his plan without hesitation. If Dustless was really lustful, he would definitely be tempted by Xiao Siming. Getting rid of him would be a matter of course. If young Siming failed, it would mean that what Great Siming said earlier was false. Xing Han could also use this as an excuse to get rid of Great Siming. This was a perfect plan to kill two birds with one stone. You want me to seduce Dustless? Is this Lord Xing Han's perfect plan? At this moment, even the reticent young Master Ming was shocked by Xing Han's plan. Of course, this was all due to anger. How could such a plan be called perfect? He was completely harming his own people. Don't you think this plan is suitable? This is for the school of Yinyang. Xing Han glanced at young Master Ming, who seemed to be resisting. His face was filled with dissatisfaction, as if he was unhappy that young Master Ming was doubting his plan. Seeing Xing Han's cold gaze, Xiao Siming subconsciously swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Young Master Ming was extremely disgusted by this sinister plan. Perhaps it would succeed, but after this incident, there would definitely be victims of the plan's success. One would naturally be Dustless, and the other would be young Master Ming herself. Xing Han's plan was indeed good, but he did not consider the feelings of others. However, this fellow was used to being arrogant and never cared about the feelings of others. In Xing Han's eyes, other than Donghuang Tai and Yueshan, everyone else in the school of Yinyang had to obey him. If possible, he sincerely hoped that Yueshan would obey him. However, their abilities were on the same level, and Xing Han did not have the right to order Yueshan around. Has Your Excellency Donghuang agreed to Lord Xing Han's plan? Young Master Ming asked calmly. If not, then forgive me for not being able to accept this matter. Even you want to defy me? Xing Han's eyes turned cold as he said unkindly, Young Master Ming, remember this clearly. Your current superior is me. There is no need to trouble Your Excellency Donghuang with such a small matter. For the future of the school of Yinyang, you have to agree even if you don't want to. Xing Han's tone was resolute, and it seemed like there was no room for negotiation. You've gone too far. When young Master Ming heard this, her delicate face was filled with unconcealable anger. Although Xing Han was indeed her superior, and the guardian of the school of Yinyang had a higher status than the elders of the five-spirit Xiantong. Young Master Ming was an elder of the Wood tribe. Although she had a high status, her status and abilities were not as high as Xing Han's. This matter is decided. When the plan is implemented, I will send someone to inform you. Xing Hun looked coldly at the indignant young Master Ming and brushed past her. His expressionless face did not move. Xing Hun's cold face did not even have a trace of apology, much less guilt. To him, all of this was natural. Natural selection was the survival of the fittest. Because Xing Hun was more powerful than young Master Ming, he could decide her future and even her life. Therefore, Xing Hun completely disregarded young Master Ming's feelings. So what if she felt wronged and resisted? There were too many unfair things in this world. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being useless. Chapter 1845. Lord Xing Hun, please wait. A crisp immortal voice came out of young Master Ming's mouth, stopping the star souls that were about to leave. Is there anything else? Turning his head to glance at young Master Ming, Xing Hun said in a tone that said there was no room for discussion. If you want to persuade me to give up, you should give up now. No. Young Master Ming felt a chill in her heart, but she still replied coldly. She asked curiously, why don't you look for Great Si Ming for this? Compared to me, she should be more loyal to Lord Xing Hun. Humph. After hearing young Master Ming's words, Xing Hun's chest, which was pierced by Dustless, started to hurt again. If it was possible, he even wanted Moon Goddess to seduce Dustless. It would be best if both of them perished together. After all, Moon Goddess was his enemy in the Yin-Yang school. But the problem was that Xing Hun did not have the right to do so. Great Si Ming was probably drifting away from him, and he could still trust young Master Ming. But Xing Hun glanced at young Master Ming, whose face was covered by a veil. He was sure that although she did not show it, she hated him very much. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Xing Hun thought about it and felt relieved. Anyone would be annoyed if this happened to them. He did not care about young Master Ming's disgust, as long as he could complete the mission. Another wave comes before the first one is over. After a while, Xing Hun left, leaving behind a dejected young Master Ming. Zichen alone was enough to give her a headache. Now there was Dustless, who she had to seduce. Young Master Ming suddenly realized that anyone with the word Chun in their name was not a good person. Night fell and the sky turned cold. Is this the Yellowstone Heavenly Book? Wuxia excitedly flipped through the bamboo slip in his hand. It was filled with densely packed characters. Although he couldn't understand a single one of them, his heart was extremely high. The corners of his mouth carried an ecstatic smile. Before coming to this world, the system consciousness Ling had given him a mission to collect the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and Songlong's 7 mansions. Now that the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was in his hands, Chunan Gong sent someone to deliver it 2 hours ago. Next up is bang. At this moment, there was an unusual explosion in front of Dustless's door, and he could also hear the sound of violent coughing. Frowning, Dustless walked out. Due to Dustless's special status, he was different from the other disciples of the Confucian school. Zhang Liang had specially arranged a separate room for Dustless. Although Tianming and Xiaoyu had made such a request, Zhang Liang had mercilessly rejected them. It's you? Sherlan. Lying on the ground was a delicate young girl dressed in night clothes. Her face was slightly pale, and the corners of her mouth were stained with purplish blood. What Dustless was most concerned about was the faintly discernible black aura that appeared between Sherlan's eyebrows. You're poisoned? Dustless asked without hesitation when he recalled that Duanmu Rong was in the same state last time. Sherlan opened her eyes and stared at Dustless, who was close at hand. When he saw the worried look on her face, he did not know why, but a strange warmth flowed through his heart. It was warm and very comfortable. Ever since her brother had been arrested, she had never felt this way. Did you sneak into the mirage alone? Dustless stared at Sherlan in surprise. Sherlan still did not speak, but she nodded slightly. There was no doubt that Dustless had guessed correctly this time. I told you before that it's very dangerous up there. Your poisoning should have something to do with Yin Zhongjuan, right? Although that guy is responsible for refining the elixir of immortality for Yingzheng, he's actually very good at refining poisons. Without further ado, Dustless quickly dragged Sherlan away. Their destination was the base of the Mo family in Mulberry Sea City. Poisoning was quite tricky, and Dustless could do nothing about it. To detoxify the poison, he first had to help the poisoned person suppress the toxicity, which required some special pills or herbs. Dustless was completely clueless about this. Later, he used internal force to help it force out the venom. True Qi was the most suitable, but unfortunately, Wuxian didn't understand True Qi. Although chakra or Ryatsu could also be used, these two forces were too violent. If he didn't handle it well, the rock orchid would explode. However, Duanmurong was very good at it. She should be able to cure Sherlan easily. It was not a big problem. By the way, there's also the 100-herb pill that Duanmurong gave me last time. With his eyes lit up, Dustless suddenly took out a jade bottle from his arms, and then fed a few black pills to Sherlan. As for whether it was useful or not, Dustless didn't know. Baichao Dan was most effective before poisoning. Although it was still effective after poisoning, the efficacy was greatly reduced. Dustless was not sure whether it could resist the poison. Zichen, thank you. About a few minutes later, Sherlan spoke. Her eyes were full of crystal light, and her face was full of gratitude. If it weren't for Dustless's help, maybe the people in front of her at this moment would be the black and white impermanence. It's just temporarily suppressed. His right eye twisted and changed. The blue and white Tensigan was exposed to the air, and the changes in Sherlan's bones and meridians were visible to Dustless. Although the poison was not completely removed, it had been steadily suppressed and stopped eroding Sherlan's body. However, this was enough. Dustless could send Sherlan to Duanmurong for treatment before she died of the poison. Chapter 1846. In the depths of the wilderness deep in the mountains and forests. The Mo family was temporarily hiding in this place. Since the Qin army stationed a large number of troops in Mulberry Sea City, the Mo family had to hide in the wilderness. The environment was too remote, but they were happy to be safe. Knock. Knock. Duanmurong, who had fallen asleep, suddenly opened her eyes when she heard the knock on the door. Under the faint moonlight, she could clearly see the blurry figure outside the door. It's the middle of the night. Duanmurong frowned and narrowed her eyes. Out of caution, she was secretly on her guard. Creak. After the door was gently pushed open, Dustless's apologetic face appeared. He said embarrassedly, "Miss Duanmu, I'm really sorry for visiting so late at night, but I'd like to trouble you to take a look at this lady." Anyone who barged into a lady's room in the dark of the night would misunderstand. "It's okay. Come in for the time being." Duanmurong glanced at the girl in Dustless's arms and nodded slightly. The tiredness in her eyes was gone. She, who was known as the medical sage, could tell at a glance that Sherlan was poisoned. "You've done well to suppress the poison in her body." After carefully feeling Sherlan's pulse, Duanmurong praised. "This poison is quite strange. I've never seen it before." "Miss Duanmu, you must be joking. It's all thanks to your 100-herb pill." Dustless shook his head and then asked, "If I'm not wrong, this is the poison of Yun Zhongjuan of the Yinyang family." Yun Zhongjuan. Hearing this, Duanmurong's eyes flashed with a strange light. She seemed to have heard of Yun Zhongjuan's name. The Yun Zhongjuan who is responsible for refining elixirs for King Yingzheng of Qin? Yes, it's him. He's also the owner of the Mirage. Dustless nodded and said, looking at the pale Sherlan, he guessed that she had rashly entered the Mirage because she was worried about her brother. Although Sherlan's actions were overly reckless, thinking about it, it was also human nature. Dustless could also understand. Their only family member had been taken away by Yun Zhongjuan, and her life was in danger. Anyone would be anxious and worried. Moreover, Yun Zhongjuan was extremely vicious. He even experimented on some people in the Mirage. Detoxifying the poison is not a problem, but the spiritual herbs required are really rare. After taking her pulse in detail, Duanmurong felt a headache coming on. If it was an ordinary poison, it would be fine, but the problem was that Yun Zhongjuan was the culprit. This guy refined all kinds of poisons and elixirs, and his formulas were extremely rare, let alone detoxifying them. "Tell me about it." Hearing this, Dustless smiled indifferently. In fact, there were many different kinds of elixirs in one place, the Mirage. In order to let Yun Zhongjuan concoct the elixir of immortality, Ing Zheng had harvested a large amount of medicinal herbs and placed them in the mirage. I do have other spiritual herbs in stock, but I'm missing one thing. Duan Murong glanced at Dustless and sighed. The emerald blood jade leaf flower is a legendary spiritual medicine that can bring the dead back to life. It's priceless. I see. Hearing this, Dustless was not worried at all. Instead, he was full of confidence and raised a finger. At most one day, before sunset tomorrow, I will definitely bring the jasper blood jade leaf flower over. Are you comforting me? Duan Murong questioned with a suspicious look. If it were other spiritual herbs, it might be difficult, but this jasper blood jade leaf flower is ready-made. Dustless smiled mysteriously. He had heard of the jasper blood jade leaf flower before. Moreover, the grandmaster of the Confucian school, Sun Zi, had the jasper blood jade leaf flower, and it was the best one. The 9 Springs jasper blood jade leaf flower. When he returned to the sage manor, it was already the next morning. When Dustless planned to visit Sun Zi, he did not expect this robust old man to take the initiative to come to him in a hurry with an extremely strange flattering expression. Little friend Zichen, I heard that you have obtained a supreme treasure, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Can you lend it to me for a look? There was no such thing as a wall that did not have a crack. Although Chu Nangong had delivered it in the dead of night, a large number of people had their eyes on the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. During this period, Dustless had secretly killed many people. Welcome, Sun Zi. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Seeing this old man looking at him with eager eyes, Dustless felt helpless. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was too important to him. Just as he was about to refuse, Dustless swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. This is not bad. I also want to see what exactly is inside that incomparably wondrous book. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was an ancient text. Dustless felt pressured to read it. Only a sage like Sun Zi, who knew about the past and present, could understand the principles behind it. No problem, but I have a condition. Dustless smiled and agreed straightforwardly. There is no harm in saying it. Sun Zi patted his chest when he heard this, looking as if he had something to say. I have a friend who is seriously injured and needs the jasper blood jade leaf flower, so... Dustless stopped and looked at Sun Zi, who seemed to be in a dilemma. His meaning was self-evident. How does this brat know that I have the jasper blood jade leaf flower? Sun Zi was puzzled. After calculating the gains and losses, he finally gritted his teeth and said, Little friend Zichen's friend is my friend. Coincidentally, I have a stock of the jasper blood jade leaf flower. I will hand it over to you later. But this Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Take it. Sun Zi nodded and agreed. Wu Chen directly threw the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to him. However, after Senior Sun Zi has studied the Great Tao in it, you must tell me the full text without changing anything. Moreover, you must return the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to me in the end. Of course, of course. Sun Zi hurriedly promised. This was not a big problem. Although it was painful to lose the jasper blood jade leaf flower, its value was not worth mentioning compared to the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Although the jasper blood jade leaf flower was rare in the world, there was more than one stock. On the contrary, there was only one Yellowstone Heavenly Book in the world. Chapter 1847. Dustless had expected that Sun Zi would agree to his terms. Although he only agreed to let him use it for reference and would return it in the future, it was already a great honor. Looking at the history of hundreds and thousands of years, how many people had seen this peerless book? Seeing Sun Zi's satisfied expression, Dustless chatted with him for a while. Little friend Zichen, since you're able to defeat Yinyang School's young arbiter Ming and Luonet's slave of 6 swords, your strength makes me feel ashamed. Putting away the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, Sun Zi stroked his beard emotionally. You're too polite. Dustless waved his hand and said humbly, I was just lucky. Lucky? Sun Zi rolled his eyes and chuckled silently. Defeating slave of 6 swords might be luck, but Yinyang School's young Master Ming was definitely not easy to deal with. On that day, Master Sun had once secretly observed the battle between Wu Chen, Li Si, and the others. Truthfully speaking, he felt extremely comfortable in his heart when he saw Li Si's face that was filled with rage from embarrassment, yet just happened to be unable to flare up. Zichen, you must pay attention to Li Si. Sun Zi reminded him out of kindness. The current Li Si is no longer the Li Si who studied under me. In his heart, there is only the Qin dynasty. After becoming the prime minister of the Qin dynasty, Li Si was afraid that Han Fei would threaten his position, and was jealous of his talent. Therefore, he framed Han Fei with false accusations, which led to Han Fei's death in prison. It was worth mentioning that Han Fei was Li Si's classmate. Of course I know that. Dustless nodded. Li Si was indeed talented, but he was too narrow-minded and cared too much about his position. Creak. The half-closed door was gently pushed open, and a boy servant walked in respectfully with a brocade box. Zichen, this is the jasper blood jade leaf flower. Sun Zi opened the brocade box and instantly revealed a plant that emitted spiritual energy. Seeing the slightly absent-minded Dustless, Sun Zi said proudly, "To be honest, this jasper blood jade leaf flower, to be more precise, should be called 9 Springs jasper blood jade leaf flower. Its medicinal effects are even stronger." "Thank you, Teacher Sun." Dustless accepted the brocade box and thanked him. "I'm still in a hurry to save that friend. I'll visit you another day to thank you." In the forested mountains outside Mulberry Sea City, Dustless hummed a little tune as he walked forward. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood as he had obtained the 9 Springs bloodjade leaf flower effortlessly. Furthermore, Sun Zi had even promised to tell him the contents of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. This was not a loss. This brat is obviously a high-ranking official. Don't let him escape. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the ground in front of him suddenly trembled on a large scale, and he could also hear the sound of fighting. Could it be that someone discovered the Mo family's hidden stronghold? Dustless raised his eyebrows and immediately sped up. This road just so happened to lead to the Mo family. That pretty boy looks a little familiar. A group of fierce-looking mountain bandits were surrounding a handsome young master. This young master's expression was a little nervous, and even the sharp-eyed Dustless could see the cold sweat on his forehead. There were a few corpses around, and they were probably this young master's guards. Could it be him? After carefully examining this young man for a moment, Dustless suddenly felt that this young man was a little familiar, and he was almost exactly the same as a person in his memory. After thinking about the time, he was immediately sure that it was him. Young Master Fu Su? After lowering his head in silence for a moment, Dustless unexpectedly revealed this person's identity. In the original work, young Master Fu Su was once surrounded by a group of mountain bandits, and the people who saved him were Sun Zi and Tian Ming. But now Dustless had waited for it. If you want to complain, you can complain that you are blocking the way. Seeing this group of fierce-looking mountain bandits, Dustless's body flashed, and he turned into a stream of light and flew out. In an instant, a large shining sword appeared in his hand. Like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep, he started a crushing massacre. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Every time he raised his blade, a head would fall to the ground. In just a few minutes, hundreds of bandits were slaughtered. Many of the bandits who escaped the net fled in all directions like birds startled by the twang of a bow when they saw Dustless's terrifying strength. "Thank you, benefactor, for saving us." Seeing Dustless's powerful strength, Fu Su, who was stunned for a moment, thanked him emotionally. "Benefactor, what is your name? Where do you live? I will definitely visit you to thank you in the future. There is no need to go through so much trouble. These mountain bandits were just blocking my way, so I just took care of them." Dustless only glanced at Dustless before leaving him with his back. Even without Fu Su, these mountain bandits would probably come out to rob Dustless. What a strange person. Fu Su's thick black eyebrows frowned together. Although Dustless did not have a surface identity, but he had an impression of the scholarly disciple's clothes. Boom boom boom. After the massacre, the quiet sky started raging again. A large group of fire cavalry from the state of Qin swarmed over, and the general leading the way was Great General Meng Tian. "Young master, please forgive me for being late." Seeing that Fu Su was safe, Meng Tian heaved a sigh of relief. If anything happened to Fu Su, The head on his neck would also be removed. You are guilty. To think that there are so many bandits in the middle of the wilderness in broad daylight. Your position as the great general is too secure. Seeing Meng Tian kneel, Fu Su did not give him a good face and loudly reprimanded. If not for that benefactor, I would have been cut into pieces by those mountain bandits. I am guilty, I deserve to die. Hearing this, Meng Tian broke out in cold sweat. He secretly glanced at the drifting figure in front of him, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Young master, I know that guy. He is Zichen from the Confucian school. Chapter 1848. He really is from the Confucian school. Hearing this, Fu Su suddenly understood and said emotionally, I'll go to the Confucian school soon. His name is Z. Wait. Fu Su's eyes shone brightly as he suddenly asked, I heard that the Confucian school disciple who took the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from Li Si is also called Zichen. Yes, young master. Meng Tian did not deny it. She then looked at the corpses on the ground and said with certainty, a young master who is so strong that it's unreliable. There's probably only that Zichen in the Confucian school. No wonder he could embarrass Li Si. He is indeed a genius. On the surface, that Zichen is definitely not more than 20 years old. Such a genius should be used by the empire. Fu Su's eyes shone brightly, giving off a brilliant light. Young master, that doesn't seem possible. Meng Tian laughed bitterly, and explained the grudge between little Saint Zhuang Li Si and Dustless. How can he blame others for falling into his trap? After listening to Meng Tian's narration, Fu Su did not sympathize with Li Si. Instead he sneered. If he wasn't overconfident he wouldn't have failed. Li Si is the one who looks down on others, how can he be willing to accept others? That's true. Hearing Fu Su's cold voice, Meng Tian could only shut her mouth. If she spoke for Li Si now, she might be in trouble too. Shanghai's Little Saint Manor is the holy land of all scholars. If I have time, I have to pay my respects. Fu Su's eyes were filled with longing. But young master. Seeing Fu Su's expression, Meng Tian carefully said, Young master, forgive me for being blunt. Last time, Lord Li had a big conflict with the Confucian school. Although he was fine in the end, I suggest. Enough, I know what you want to say. Do you think that those scholars will assassinate me? Fu Su snorted and waved his hand calmly. I appreciate General Meng's good intentions, but I have an expert helping me this time. It's fine. Expert? Hearing this, Meng Tian looked at Fu Su in surprise. Then, she decisively shut her mouth. Fu Su was furious, so it was better to talk less. The Confucian school's stronghold. Miss Duanmu, I've brought the item. Dustless rushed into Duanmu Rong's room without stopping. The first thing he saw was Duanmu Rong carefully taking care of Sherlan on the bed. He could even smell the bitter smell of medicine. So fast? Duanmu Rong looked at Dustless in astonishment. Dustless had only disappeared for a few hours, and he had already brought back the legendary elixir. The Jade Blood Jade Leaf Flower. Duanmu Rong didn't dare to praise his speed. Like I said before, I have stock. Dustless handed the viridescent blood jade leaf flower to Duanmu Rong before pouring himself a cup of tea. He then looked out the window and asked, Speaking of which, where are the Snow Maidens and Master Ban? They don't seem to be here. Upon hearing this, Duanmu Rong suddenly pulled Dustless over. Seeing that there was no one around, she whispered, I don't know the exact situation either. Everyone was called over by Zifang. Ovary? You mean Zhongliang? Dustless was even more confused. He asked, When did he come? I remember that he said that as the third master of the Confucian family, Zhang Liang would do his best to avoid suspicion and reduce the number of meetings with the school of Mo. Why did he suddenly come? Did something big happen? In Dustless's heart, Zifang, or Zhang Liang, was also not a good person. Of course, he wasn't a bad person, but he also had designs on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. Therefore, whether Zhang Liang was good or bad, it didn't matter to Dustless. In this world, anyone who had designs on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon was Dustless's enemy. There was no distinction between good and bad. Anyone related to the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon would fight to the death. It was that simple. What did he want from the school of Mo? Dustless asked calmly as he put down the teacup in his hand. I don't know the details. After glancing at Dustless, Duan Murong then glanced at the secluded room in the distance and said, It seems that everyone is discussing some secret plan. I guess it's to deal with the Qin state. Deal with the Qin state? Miss Duanmu, although you look strong on the surface, sometimes you are too naive. Dustless shook his head slightly and sighed. What do you mean? Duan Murong frowned and looked at Dustless. With some dissatisfaction and anger, she said, Do you think they are hiding something from me? I don't know if they are hiding something from you, but... Dustless's eyes narrowed slightly as he analyzed wisely. They must have something they don't want you to know. If they are really discussing how to deal with the Qin state, is there a need to hide it from you? Moreover, you are one of the commanders of the school of Mo. They deliberately excluded you from this circle. Isn't it to hide it from you? Dustless's eyes were silent as he asked calmly. Looking at Duan Murong, whose cheeks were a little stiff, he guessed in his heart, maybe I have implicated her. Everyone in the school of Mo knew that Duan Murong and Dustless had an extraordinary relationship. Maybe they just wanted to hide it from Dustless, so they avoided Duan Murong. However, Zhang Liang, you are too self-righteous. What in the world can be hidden from me? Especially when you're doing it right under my nose. How ignorant. Dustless suddenly sneered, and then his left eye changed rapidly, and a purple reincarnation Sharingan appeared. Tomb of Samsara Border Prison. Dustless's shadow was not only powerful in attack, but also in spying. No one could find it. Chapter 1849. There is no doubt that the power of Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison, is unparalleled in the world. Whether it is a pure attack or other aspects, it is an unparalleled existence. For example, in the current investigation, only people who have Rinnegan and 6 paths of immortality can realize the existence of Dustless's shadow. It is completely naked cheating. Even if he punched Zhongliang, no one will notice. Maybe this kid will think that it was a ghost who punched him. You smile so slyly. Seeing Dustless's evil smile, as if he found a fun toy, Duan Murong felt uncomfortable. Slyly? Maybe. But it doesn't matter. It is normal to use special means in special times. Dustless replied disapprovingly. Perhaps he is used to being thick-skinned. He doesn't feel that he is too much. Suit yourself. You can go out for a while. I'm going to treat this little girl. Duan Murong ordered him to leave, and immediately pushed Wuxia out without any trace of politeness. Blood Jade Leaf Flower. 9 Spring Blood Jade Leaf Flower. After opening the brocade box, Duan Murong was surprised to find that this Blood Jade Leaf Flower has 9 leaves. Its efficacy is several times that of ordinary Blood Jade Leaf Flower. Staring at the sleeping girl, she said, It seems that your position in Dustless's heart is not comparable to ordinary people. Then Duan Murong began to prepare the necessary medicine to treat Sherlan. As for Dustless, he was silently peeping. I want to see what tricks you are going to play. With a sneer, Dustless controlled the shadow to approach the room where Zhang Liang and the people of Mo family were talking. Everyone, what do you think of my plan? In the room with a slightly depressed atmosphere, Zhang Liang looked at the people of Mo family seriously. Their expressions were a little heavy, and their eyes were flickering. It seems that they are making a very difficult decision. Zhang Liang's plan is to cooperate with Wei Zhuang's countercurrent sand. Everyone, I don't need to say the current situation. I think you all know that we have reached the edge of the cliff. The power of Qin Kingdom is far beyond our imagination. If we are not careful, we may be crushed. Zhang Liang continued to persuade them. Please don't forget that although Wei Zhuang used to be on the opposite side of the Mo family, he is also a Korean. Like me, he is a noble in Korea. Wei Zhuang's close friend, Han Fei, was killed by Li Si. There is also a grudge between them. No wonder this kid has a secret meeting behind my back. Through the news from the shadow, Wu Chen sneered and scoffed at Zhang Liang's plan. No wonder he wanted to hide it from him. As everyone knows, Dustless and Wei Zhuang had a grudge against Wei Zhuang. Several of Quicksand's experts were all killed by Dustless. Zhang Liang was probably afraid that Wu Qin would strongly object if he knew about it. But Wei Zhuang is related to Jizi's death. Gao Jianli took a step forward. He didn't like Wei Zhuang and said coldly, "If it weren't for Wei Zhuang and Jiyu Qianya, our mechanical city wouldn't have been breached in just one day. A lot of Mo family disciples died. This is all Wei Zhuang's masterpiece. He is fully responsible." "That's reasonable." Old Man Ban, Teacher Su, and the Snow Maiden nodded in agreement. "Everyone, I know what the death of Mo family's Jizi means to you all." Zhang Liang smiled slightly. His calm demeanor seemed to indicate that he had anticipated what the Mo family would say. He analyzed, "But don't forget that it was Wu Qin's one-sided statement to say that the giant was killed by the Qin soldiers. Until now, there is no conclusive evidence to point out that the Qin soldiers or Wei Zhuang killed the Mo family's giant. Do you think it is possible?" Zhang Liang's eyes shone with shrewdness. He said wisely, "Someone deliberately killed Mo family's Jizi and framed Wei Zhuang and the Qin soldiers. This Zhang Liang. Letting him live is indeed a disaster." Wu Qin, who was eavesdropping, couldn't help but be stunned. He had long heard that Zhang Liang was extraordinarily intelligent. Now that he had seen it, he really lived up to his reputation. The death of the Mo family's great son was actually not a soldier of the Qin state or Wei Zhuang. The main culprit of all this was actually Dustless. "Mr. Zhang Liang, your words seem to point to Senior Dustless." Gunye frowned as he looked at Zhang Liang. Even though he did not explain in detail, most of the people in the Mo family's mechanical city had been attacked, and almost all of them had been injured. Even those who had not been injured had been killed by Qi Lian's 1,000 Knights of Doves. Other than Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha, the Qin soldiers and Dustless were still active. If Zhang Liang's guess was correct and the culprit was not Lu Sha or the Qin soldiers, then there was only one person left, Dustless. "Zifang, although the Mo family is grateful that you saved us, I hope that you won't speak carelessly." Master Ban suddenly said unhappily, "If it wasn't for Dustless, the Mo family would have been destroyed. Everyone knows this." "That's right. Dustless has no reason to harm us." The honest Big Hammer chimed in. On the other hand, Gao Jianli was silent. He suddenly thought of something and had some doubts about Wu Qin. However, when he saw that everyone believed in Wu Qin's appearance and that he didn't have any evidence, he tactfully shut his mouth in the end. A fox will eventually reveal its tail. Gao Jianli's expression didn't change, but he had made up his mind to observe Dustless closely. After thinking about it carefully, Gao Jianli suddenly realized that some things were too coincidental. When Wu Qin appeared, a series of unlucky things started to happen to the Mo family. No matter if it was a coincidence or if there was a hidden agenda, it was worth paying attention to. Moreover, Gao Jianli also understood that what Zhang Liang said was an out-and-out fact. The death of the Mo clan's great son was completely fabricated by Wu Qin alone. Whether or not there were other shady scenes, only God knew. Chapter 1850. That D***MN Zhang Liang. He's not easy to deal with. Doesn't he know that the smarter he is, the faster he dies? He doesn't have any self-awareness at all. Dustless stared at Zhang Liang. His vigilance against him increased exponentially. Although Zhang Liang's strength was average, his intelligence was shockingly high. No wonder he had helped Liu Bang defeat Xiangyu and establish the Han dynasty. It was undeniable that he had some skills. However, no matter what he shouldn't have done, he shouldn't have set his sights on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. In this way, he'd become Wu Qin's enemy as well. Under that terrifying strength, what could a so-called scheme count as? "Brat, look at how excited you are. Let me teach you a lesson first so that you can soothe your mouth." Dustless looked at the eloquent Zhang Liang and could not help but smirk. He controlled the shadow to sneak up beside Zhang Liang. Bang! At that moment, Zhang Liang was ambushed like never before. He fell flat on his back and was caught off guard. "Who ambushed me?" Zhang Liang's face darkened as he roared angrily. "Ambush?" Hearing this, the Mo family members were speechless. In their eyes, no one had seen anyone ambush Zhang Liang. Instead, he had fallen to the ground for no reason. Zifang, are you feeling unwell? You fell on your own. No one ambushed you. You know the Mo family's teachings. Ambushing is not something we would do. Old Man Ban looked at the embarrassed Zhang Liang strangely. He did not understand what this guy was trying to do. He had fallen on his own, but he was blaming others for ambushing him. Was he crazy? I didn't see anyone ambush him either. Gunya nodded. He was also puzzled. You guys too? Zhang Liang looked at the Mo family members. Everyone nodded in unison. None of them had seen anyone ambush Zhang Liang. They had not even seen anyone make a move. This is really F***ket up. Hearing this, Zhang Liang cursed in his heart. He had never believed in ghosts, but now he could not help but be suspicious. Forget it. Zhang Liang remembered that he still had something important to talk about, so he could only make light of the small matter. He rubbed his sore buttocks and saw a bench on the left. Zhang Liang walked over and sat down. Everyone, what are your plans? Are you going to? Bang. Unexpectedly, before Zhang Liang could sit down, the bench automatically moved away. Plop. Zhang Liang's butt missed, and his body fell to the ground. After his face twitched, it became even more unsightly. Don't tell me this is an accident. After being played twice in a row, Zhang Liang finally could no longer maintain his calm. He said coldly, everyone from the Mo family, if you don't want to form an alliance, you can just say so. Why must you continuously humiliate me? Serves you right for daring to expose me to the end. Continue to wait for my revenge. Dustless, who was hiding in the dark, had an unconcealable smile on his face. Zhang Liang's two embarrassing moments were naturally caused by him. Who asked this guy to point the spearhead of Yandan's death at him? A moving chair? Is it Master Ban's latest creation? Master Fan of the Xiang clan of the Chu Kingdom exclaimed, the Mo family is indeed a famous family in the world. They can even make such a strange thing. Perhaps others did not see it just now, but Master Fan saw it very clearly. The moment Zhang Liang sat down, the bench seemed to have grown legs and moved away by itself. This has nothing to do with me. Seeing everyone looking at him strangely, Master Ban hurriedly explained. How can an old man like me make such a thing? Do you think I have nothing better to do? I don't have so much time. When he found that everyone was looking at him suspiciously, Master Ban wanted to cry, but had no tears. He said that he had done nothing. Enough. I'll just stand. Zhang Liang said in a cold tone, with a gloomy face. Being kicked by someone could be treated as the work of a ghost or an illusion. However, being tricked by someone else again, anyone would feel depressed. She was kicked and fell, and that was all she needed to do. What was worse was that he did not even know who the murderer was. Zhang Liang suddenly felt that he was a tragedy. In order to prove my innocence, I agree with the Mo family and Wei Zhuang. Originally, Master Ban had resisted the idea of forming an alliance with Wei Zhuang, but now, in order to explain himself to Qin Bai, Master Ban was ready to risk everything. I also agree. Gao Jianli stood on Master Ban's side, unexpectedly choosing to form an alliance with Wei Zhuang. As for Snow Lady, she did not say much. Everyone knew about her relationship with Gao Jianli, so she decisively supported Gao Jianli. Sigh, in that case, I can only go with the flow. With a sigh, Daoji also decisively stood next to Master Ban. Obviously, he also agreed to form an alliance with Wei Zhuang's Quicksand. Now only Big Iron Hammer and Teacher Su were left. Even if they refused, it would be useless. The votes were 4-2. So forming an alliance with Wei Zhuang's Quicksand was a done deal. Mo family, you will regret this. Seeing this, Dustless, who was watching in the dark, withdrew his shadow. The alliance between Wei Zhuang and the Mo family was actually expected. The only surprise was that they did not expect the alliance to happen so early. In the original work, even though the Mo family and Quicksand had countless grievances, after Zhang Liang's matchmaking, in the end the two sides colluded, and Quicksand went from an enemy to an ally. This was not a coincidence. It was inevitable. If the Mo family continued to be isolated, Even with the help of Confucianism and Taoism, it was destined that they would not be able to survive alone. Cooperation was going with the flow. Chapter 1851. Zhongliang Gao Jianli Wei Zhuang. I can't believe such a weird combination is actually together. Through the observation of the shadow, Dustless could clearly see the relationship between the three of them. Wei Zhuang and Zhang Liang were fine since they had been colluding with each other for a long time, so Dustless was not surprised. On the other hand, Gao Jianli's behavior made Dustless feel rather strange. Gao Jianli seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. I'll find a suitable opportunity to kill all of you. Dustless's expression gradually turned cold, and his eyes glowed with a demonic bloodlust. He was not a kind person to begin with, and he had always been clear about his grudges. He would definitely kill anyone who had a grudge against him, especially since Zhang Liang and Wei Zhuang were scheming against the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. How could Dustless let them go? As for Gao Jianli, it seemed like he wanted to investigate the death of the Mo family's magnate. Since their relationship was so deep, Dustless could only send Gao Jianli to heaven to meet the Mo family's magnate. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. On this day, many guests came to the Mo family's stronghold, and Dustless happened to be there as well. In the past few days, Dustless often returned to the Mo family's stronghold. With his speed, it was only a matter of seconds. As long as he left the Flying Thunder God Sorcerer on Duan Murong, he could be summoned at any time. Wei Zhuang's quicksand. This time, no one stopped the people who rashly barged into the Mo family's stronghold, because the leader was Zhang Liang. Behind him were Wei Zhuang and the other members of Quicksand. Qi Lian, Bai Feng, and the rest were all there, as well as the eerie black Qilin. Mr. Zhang Liang, please invite Quicksand over. At this moment, Dustless was the first to speak. He stared at Zhang Liang and said with a smile, "Could it be that you want to take my head?" Dustless's sudden words made the atmosphere very awkward. "I'm not here to fight with you." After a moment of silence, Quicksand's boss Wei Zhuang replied calmly. It was worth mentioning that after Wei Zhuang's demon sword, Shark Tooth, had been destroyed by Dustless during the battle at the Mo family's mechanical city, Wei Zhuang had stolen Gunia's script. Now he was using a decent-looking wooden sword. "You have to be able to defeat me first." Dustless disdainfully curled his lips. He could not intervene in the matters between the Mo family and the Quicksand. After all, he was just an outsider, not a disciple of the Mo family. Even if the Mo family suddenly decided to join the Qin Empire, Dustless had no right to intervene. Haha! A seductive laugh came from Qi Lian's mouth. She smiled sweetly and asked, "Mr. Dustless, you destroyed Lord Wei Zhuang's shark tooth last time. Don't you plan to compensate for it?" Compensation? Dustless frowned slightly and looked at Qi Lian. Then he said lazily, "I'm all alone in this world. Firstly, I have no money. Secondly, I have no power. I'm a pauper. If you want me to compensate, you can only take my life. However, when you come to take my life, I won't just sit there and wait for it." Dustless added, "Princess Red Lotus, Qi Lian, Brother Dustless, from now on, we're all on the same side. There's no need to be so calculative. Leave the matter of Wei Zhuang's sword to me." Zhang Liang saw that there was a strong smell of gunpowder in the air, and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. If this continued, both sides might start killing each other again. "You're a smiling tiger. You're the one who caused all of this. Now you dare to pretend to be innocent. Indeed, scholars are the scariest when they're shameless." Seeing Zhang Liang's sad and regretful appearance, Dustless felt a strong sense of disgust for him. He couldn't help but ridicule him in his heart. "Zhang Liang, this guy. You should just go and be a movie king. If you didn't collude with Wei Zhuang, how could you have ended up in this situation?" Our Quicksand has no objection to Zifang's words. "I'm just afraid that someone will really get angry." Qi Lian gently pursed her rose petal-like red lips. Her tone was very enchanting. She was like a fairy, giggling continuously. However, her eyes were filled with a cold light. "There are still many classes in the Sage Manor this afternoon. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. Dustless glanced at the members of Quicksand one by one. Then he glanced at Zhang Liang, Gao Jianli, and the others. Then he disappeared into the wilderness alone. Master Ban, why did you hide the news of your alliance with Quicksand from me? Duan Murong's sullen tone spread. The members of the Mo family were slightly embarrassed. Master Ban, who was questioned by Duan Murong, had a face full of misfortune. Why didn't you ask so many people? Are you making things difficult for an old man like me? Old Man Ban smiled bitterly in his heart. Staring at Duan Murong, he could only reluctantly explain. Miss Rong has been busy treating that little girl recently. We hid it from you to prevent you from being distracted. That's right. Big Hammer and the others immediately scrambled to nod, fearing that Duan Murong would catch them red-handed. Is that so? Then shouldn't I thank everyone? Duan Murong's cold gaze swept over the commanders of the Mo family. She also understood the current predicament of the Mo family. To a certain extent, she could understand the actions of Old Man Ban and the others, but they forgot the consequences of doing so. It may be a good thing to temporarily advance and retreat with Quicksand, but have you ever thought that we may lose another important ally? The Mo family abandoned Dustless and chose Quicksand. Hearing this, the members of the Mo family suddenly fell silent. The fish is what I want. The bear's paw is also what I want. I can't have both, only one. Zhang Liang smiled faintly and replied with a classic Confucian answer. This was normal. Wanting to have a foot in two boats was tantamount to a dream. Abandoning one of them was inevitable. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.